gonna mute.
Which hand do I wave with?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through a whole bottle of cleaner. It doesn't seem to clean.
Yeah, maybe it's on inside the lens.
Yeah, I'm
You're in Palm. You might want to shut the door behind you. You can see your bedroom. You don't care. All right. So we got Liz on here. We got a minute here. Vice Mayor, I see her signed in. I don't see her face. There's Liz. All right, we got everybody here. It's right up at 6:30. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Oh, wait, I got my little hammer here somewhere. My little hammer. I call to order the study session meeting of the City of Campbell City Council on Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. This study session for City Council meeting is conducted via telecommunication and is compliant with the provisions of the Brown Act and Executive Order N-29-20 issued by the governor. This City Council meeting is being live streamed on Channel 26, the city's website, and YouTube. Members of the public will not be able to attend the meeting in Campbell City Chambers physically. However, those wishing to participate are asked to register in advance using the link located on this agenda. Speakers may be allocated up to 2 minutes for public comment. Roll call, please, City Clerk.
Councilmember Waterman.
here.
Councilmember Bybee.
Present.
Councilmember Resnikoff.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Here.
Mayor Landry.
Here, thank you. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak? Speakers may be allocated up to 2 minutes. City Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
We do not.
Okay, then we're going to move on to agenda item 1, the Plan Bay Area 2050 and the Regional Housing Needs Allocation RENA number coordination. And we have a presentation by Stephen Rose.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Landry and members of City Council. I'll go ahead and share my presentation. Give me 1 second, set it up. So as just covered, the study session is really, it serves 3 goals. The first is to broadly explain the role of a council of governments in relation to the city. The second is to provide an overview and update on Plan Bay Area 2050 as well as RENA. And the last is to solicit feedback on a draft letter to ABAG and MTC, as well as receive general direction on the level of involvement expected of staff in these regional processes moving forward. So in regard to councils of governments, where cities generally focus on issues within their incorporated area, councils of governments, or COGS for short, are regional organizations that serve to represent local governments and serve to develop consensus on issues that cross jurisdictional lines. While the role of COGS can be broad, they almost always serve to develop growth forecasts for the region and adopt a regional transportation plan, or RTP, consistent with state and federal law. The 2 parallel and long-range processes this presentation covers, Plan Bay Area 2050 and RENA, are both excellent examples of issues requiring a regional approach in order to plan for and manage. While these documents are updated frequently as part of a regular regional planning process, COGS rely on the feedback of the public as well as from member agencies like the City of Campbell to aid in their preparation. So Plan Bay Area 2050 covers 9 counties and 101 cities. So Campbell is just one of the other 100 cities which are being represented by the effort. And it serves to satisfy state law requirements for consolidated land use and transportation planning process, as well as the requirements of SB 375 to adopt sustainable community strategies to achieve target greenhouse gas reductions. The two main components of PBA 2050 or Plan Bay Area 2050, growth geographies and growth strategies, are intended to address future growth by answering the questions of where and how the region will grow, respectively. The growth geographies and growth strategies are designed to align Plan Bay Area 2050 with the 8-year RENA cycle. Plan Bay Area 2050 focuses on 4 key issue areas, and which include the economy, the environment, housing, and transportation. So as part of Plan Bay Area 2050, MTC and ABAG have evaluated various growth options and have agreed to expand growth geographies regionally by combining both existing and newly nominated planned development areas. For jurisdictions which have nominated less than 50% of their eligible PDA areas, such as the City of Campbell, the growth geography studied include additional areas such as HRAs and TRAs. Without getting into the specific terminology of all these acronyms, generally, all of these areas are served by public transit options such as bus and light rail, with certain headway times during AM and PM peak hours. So taking a look at, so this is what we're looking at here on the screen. This is the growth geographies that are being studied for the City of Campbell. So as staff, we were evaluating, you can see the areas which are in red. Those are generally the PDA areas, the planned development areas. The city has an adopted PDA, which includes most of the downtown, extends up north, all the way up to Hamilton. But the other, you have these other circles, which are, you guys can see the mouse on my screen, correct? So this area over here, this is an example near a light rail stop. There's an additional light rail stop in the downtown and up on Hamilton. So these areas are all considered transit-rich areas. So they're pretty much assuming that these areas would be more likely than not to be redeveloped with additional growth of some kind. Now, as Plan Bay Area, this isn't just housing growth. This is growth in general. It includes like commercial, industrial jobs growth and the like. When really getting into these areas, some of the topic areas that we as staff touched on were just the accuracy of data. So there are some areas like John D. Morgan Park that the boundaries aren't quite clipped correctly. There's a few I think Gomez Park isn't included off of Alice. There's a few other little areas of accuracy which we'd like to touch on in a letter to ABAG and MTC to just let them know that there's some refinement in what they've already prepared and what they have in terms of their background data. But then separately, there's also some physical impairments which we would like to see taken into account. Like, for instance, Highway 17 kind of cuts right through a large portion of the city in some of these planned areas. So although the area within the circle might meet certain criteria, being within a quarter mile or half mile of public transit, the actual ability to transverse that area, the walkability, if you will, to get from one side to the other is severely limited without almost transversing an area equal to or greater than the criteria that was used to assign that area. One other part is that there are some areas which we're evaluating for potential exclusion. Those include open space areas, parks, the Los Gatos Creek Trail, Los Gatos Creek itself, the PG&E substation. We have 2 very large off-ramps in the city, which should also be omitted from potential buildable areas, as well as just general culverts. Now, there are also some other types of uses like churches and schools that we'll need to look into a little bit in greater detail, since it's becoming increasingly common for such land uses to either develop housing on site or to sell off a portion of their property to be developed. So area, the RENA process is far more narrowly focused on the distribution and assignment of housing units. So it's really just housing. Every 8 years, HCD, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, determines the total number of new homes the Bay Area needs to build by income level to meet the projected housing needs of the state. So then ABAG, working with HMC, the Housing Methodology Committee, then distributes a share of the region's housing needs to each area within the region. So we would receive our numbers from them. This share or RENA allocation determines how much housing by income level a city must plan for when adopting our next housing element. So for the 6th RENA cycle, which is the one that's up and coming, it's projected to be 2.35 or 235% higher than the current 5th cycle of RENA. So we're going from 933 units up to plus or minus, we don't know the exact number yet, something around 2,193 units. To put that in relatable terms, that's pretty much the equivalent of roughly 13 Revere buildings, or the Bay West building on Bascom, or 14 St. Anton level developments. That's a project on Railway being planned for, or needing to be planned for in the next 8 years. Granted, the density of individual sites could be greater and the units could be smaller. So you might have fewer sites. You're cramming in a little bit more density on fewer sites if we were to raise density levels, but that's really kind of what we're looking at. And obviously there's other ways that the city can go about achieving its RENA numbers, such as increased production of accessory dwelling units, or looking at other ways of increasing housing production and supply. But that's generally what we're looking at when it comes down to RENA. And I just anecdotally would want to mention that the city's not currently satisfying its 5th cycle requirement. So not only are we falling a little bit short, at least in some of the categories, as it stands right now, we're looking to increase that by a factor of nearly 230%. So recognizing the city's role in the regional planning process to really provide feedback to these groups like ABAG and MTC on Plan Bay Area 2050 as well as RENA. We're looking for, there's an opportunity right now, but Plan Bay Area 2050 the draft blueprint was released on July 9th. So there's a period of time that we have to comment. It runs through August 10th. And as staff, we have identified a couple topic areas at which we could touch on in that letter, such as the accuracy of the data, exclusion, or potentially reduction factors being applied to certain uses within a half-mile radius of transit stops in areas which have been identified in these maps, as well as mentioning those physical barriers to development like Highway 17 mentioned earlier. Separately, as part of the planning collaborative group, there's a letter that's being prepared. The City of Campbell is not currently one of the co-drafters of the letter, but we would have the opportunity to comment on it. And that letter is also going to be touching on a couple other topics in Plan Bay Area 2050 that I haven't touched on yet, which is topics such as there's effectively a greater investment to transit-oriented cities, greater level of transit-oriented investment, but there's actually a lower level of allocation. So that's like for the city of San Francisco and Berkeley, and that's in part due to voter initiatives in those areas. Like San Francisco has adopted a voter initiative to place caps on jobs and I believe development of office development. But those voter initiatives, which pretty much are being built into the plan and into the growth assumptions, those are subject to change. They could have a different initiative or different referendum in San Francisco and change that without really going back at the regional level and reevaluating, is that appropriate? So they wouldn't really be engaged in that way. Two other points which were brought up during the planning collaborative meeting was that there are a number of large parcels within these planned areas which just lack transportation systems. There's no plan to fix that or to develop such transportation systems. And that there's a relativistic impact of if you allocate a certain number of housing units or development to certain communities, they can absorb it more readily than smaller communities, where if you were to assign a disproportionate amount of housing to those communities or development in general, you could be increasing the population or the size of those communities by 50%. So in years past, there had been possibilities of them placing caps so that you would have no more than a certain percentage of a community growth in a cycle. And we aren't seeing that this time around. So these are not necessarily comments of our own. These are comments which we've heard from the planning collaborative group. I just wanted to bring them to your attention as well. And then obviously these are all great participation opportunities for the city that we can provide feedback to ABAG and MTC on Plan Bay Area 2050 and RENA. And right now the RENA draft methodology has not been established yet, but once it is, we'll have an opportunity to comment as well. And then even once the RENA allocations are assigned and we actually know what our exact number is, be it 2,000 or some number in that range, there'll be an appeals process where we as staff could return to the council to solicit feedback, or right now we could be getting your feedback on to what level of involvement you would like to see staff being engaged in, say, the RENA appeals process. Should we accept the number that's given to us, or should we be questioning it in some way without exactly knowing what that number is yet? So with that said, and in conclusion, staff is recommending that City Council just receive the report that was just provided and provide general direction to staff on Planned Bay Area 2050 and the regional housing allocation coordination efforts. And separately, to provide feedback on the draft letter, which is provided as the first attachment to ABAG and MPC regarding the approved and expanded growth geography assumptions integrated into the Planned Bay Area 2050 blueprint. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Can you bring back up the screen with everybody?
Yes, let me go ahead and stop sharing.
There we go.
Should be back.
Okay, so who wants to start? Let's go in voting order. Rich, do you have any comments? I don't think he's listening. Paul?
Yeah, Stephen, more of a question. So I'm not against giving feedback and giving our position, but realistically, what's it going to accomplish?
So it is suffice to say, we are just one of 101 cities that are being represented. There are a lot of larger cities like San Jose. You have Mountain View and other communities which maybe possibly have a larger say. But I think at a local level, we could absolutely provide more specific feedback based on our review of the documents that they're preparing in relation to our own geographies that we understand better. And they're not going into the individual parcel by parcel level in the way that we as staff could. So they could benefit from that level of analysis in some way, or if you in general have feedback about.
I mean, realistically, just your opinion, realistically, especially the RENA numbers, which are really high, obviously, for everybody. It's the thing that's moving forward and isn't going to be stopped because there's just this momentum to demand more and more housing, regardless of the in a one-size-fits-all kind of solution.
Well, I would say housing is a recognized demand and need, and that individual communities pushing back is pretty much why the state has taken a larger charge and role in all of this.
Okay.
We can see the writing on the wall. Increasingly so, communities are being asked to provide more housing, and as communities push back, more and more local land use control and authority is being taken away. So if the city were to challenge, I mean, I don't think feedback is necessarily a bad thing.
I agree.
I mean, these processes, they rely on public involvement as well as involvement from these jurisdictions, but I can't say to what extent a single point that an individual represented city would make that would actually suddenly change or postpone the assignment of units or progress. That's why some letters, like the letter from that's being worked on by the Planning Collaborative, might hold a little bit more weight than an individual letter from the city of Campbell.
And I agree with you. Feedback isn't a bad thing. The only other comment I'll make is beyond writing a letter, and if we get more involved in analyzing and all that, I'd just be interested in knowing if it impacts you and your department from doing something else that we may care about equally or more importantly. So the letter is one thing, right? But if we go beyond that, then I'd like just that feedback on what does that mean.
Yeah, I would say that every activity, every minute of the day that we have available staff, we're putting to good use. So it's a matter of how we're putting it to use, right? So if I'm spending time, say even preparing a study session like the one tonight, that's taking away time from development projects, which I could be bringing forth and bringing forward. And so it's a matter of priorities, right? To what level should we be involved as staff?
Right, that's normal. I'm only bringing it up now because I see probably very little return from taking these positions because I think that stuff is going to happen anyway. But point made. Thank you, Susan, or Mayor.
Okay, Anne?
I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay, Liz?
Are we doing questions or just general conversation?
I thought we were going right into general conversation. And you want to have other comments besides questions?
I just have a couple. I see the value in providing feedback. I think that's our role as elected officials to provide some feedback based on our unique situation. Whether or not it'll make a difference is to me not the point. It's our opportunity to provide input into the process. And I just have a couple of suggestions on the letter when we get to that point, if the council approves submittal of the letter.
We're at that point. We're discussing. So if you want,
Okay.
May I suggest that we talk a little bit and then get back to the letter?
I was just if she had suggestions, I want to hear them while I'm talking. Well, when my part comes. So I wanted to hear from everybody. So go ahead, Anne.
So in the draft letter, in the first paragraph, the last sentence, several growth geographies, mapping observations, and the City of Campbell City Council hopes that you will review these observations. I would reword that and with a word that says the City Council requests that you will review these observations. I think that's a stronger sentence than saying hopes. And then on the second page, in the first sentence there, I think it should say 1/2 HALF mile instead of 1/2 mile. And that would, those are my two changes.
Okay, so nothing on substance or what to be included?
No.
Okay, Rich, you're back. Do you have comments, questions? No, okay, Liz?
I'm switching screen. Sorry, I'm switching screens here. So what I wanted to do is, as everyone knows, I've mentioned this quite a bit over the last 6 to 8 months because in my role as the representative for the Santa Clara County Cities Association, I represent all 15 cities. So, and we've been having meetings at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, talking just about all of this. And what's going on, there's a slide that I don't know if Ryan can call up. And this is the background of why I'm thinking that this is a very important issue for the city to provide comment on because of the misinformation. And will make a difference going forward. Ryan, I don't know if you, IT guy, Ryan, can you pull up the slide? There's a
Yes.
Thank you so much. There's a slide that shows purple. And it's the area that thank you. The area of the Housing and Community Development and the Finance, Department of Finance in Sacramento has identified as areas in Campbell. Obviously the Campbell boundary isn't there, but you can pretty much get the gist of it covering a lot of Campbell. So then what they did is there's a second slide, Ryan, that shows that there is an expectation that cities would provide, I don't know if you can blow that up or not. Thank you. So what it basically says is that out of roughly 30, I can't quite read it either, but 3,600 square acres, it says that those purple areas you're looking at constitute about 2,500 square acres, or about 2/3. And the whole of the PDA eligible analysis from HCD and the Department of Finance is to have cities provide 50% of your land into a PDA. So that's kind of the background. That's the expectation and analysis that comes into why it's important for Campbell to speak carefully and thoughtfully. So that, thank you, Ryan. Then you go to the diagram that, and you can see it has what we call the leftovers. Those are the 2 shades of green and the purple shades. And those are the areas that are analyzed as it's in Stephen's presentation. And they have acreages associated with them. So it's a fairly significant numerical expectation for Campbell. So to have staff spend time, which we are requested to do, the city is requested to do, to have staff spend time reviewing and analyzing and getting information correct. You know, are we having 2 more light rail stations is obviously a big one. And there's some expectations about the dear old VTA bus routes that are constantly changing. And there are assumptions there that aren't correct. So I am basically saying that it is extremely, and I can give more detail, it's extremely important for staff, I believe, for council task staff to follow through and make significant comments on the material. And the final document that I would like to call your attention to is you received from staff, I think this morning, a slide presentation on, what do you call it? 2050.
MTC.
And an MTC in 2050. And of course, I can't pull it up right this minute. And there's a slide 17, I believe, that specifically shows they're expecting the growth in the South Bay to increase. I'll see if I can pull it up. And my memory says it's increasing from 30-some% to 40-some%. It's on slide 16. Anybody can find that. And so when we're making an assumption, which is reasonable, that the increase in the number of 235%, when you put that in the context of the increased housing that is being planned for in the RENA numbers reflecting the 2050 analysis, the allocation to the South Bay is going to be substantively higher than the average of 2.5. It could likely be as high as 3. We don't know. That's an ongoing process. But knowing that that's a possibility, it makes sense to be sure that staff spends time making that the information that those assumptions are based on is very, very clear. Campbell has done lots of good things in terms of putting light rail into our community, but that also makes us subject to high housing projections. So the more accurate we can be, and feedback will be accepted up until August 10th. It will be of value. It'll be of any value more than less, it'll still be of value. And I think it will be a lost opportunity not to ask staff to spend time doing that.
Any more?
No, that's okay for now.
Okay, so my first question is to Bill. This sets us up to be able to appeal later, potentially. Do we need to include everything now that we would potentially want to appeal later, correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, so I got my list. Stephen, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so I have to say that I think it is so unfair. A town like Tiburon has been forced to do nothing, and the comment was, well, they're built out. Well, so is Campbell. So it bothers me that they're pushing it all down here saying, well, the jobs are here. That's fine, but the jobs aren't shown in Campbell. And we all know that housing and residential properties, the portion of the parcel tax that we receive is so small, it does not at all offset the services that we provide them. And I want that to be in there, that if we only have housing, we're going to go bankrupt, that we need jobs. So there has to be a jobs housing balance. And you can't just say the county of Santa Clara has the jobs. No, we need them in Campbell. We need the increased sales tax and/or property tax that goes with new businesses. I don't see any nexus between where you can build high density and a bus route that right now they're changing. The San Jose's getting all of them. VTA's cutting us down to bare minimum, and who knows if that's going to get worse. And so I can see a light rail has a nexus because it's a physical structure and less likely to go away. But you cannot be telling us that our best corridor in San Jose on Bascom makes us have to add density over there on that strip of land. Let's see. Next one was, okay, so you said on there's 265 acres in that chart that you showed us, Liz?
Yes.
And so what acreage is left after you take out all our exclusions, open space, trails, off ramps?
Their number is,
Whose number? I was asking Stephen. He was going to look at a map. What number are you using, Liz?
I'm using it from the spreadsheet.
Right, it's 265, but I didn't see a number of the reduction when we get rid of everything. Stephen, do you?
It's on the legend on the slides that Stephen has.
I didn't catch the number.
Well, the 265 is just within our plan development area, the PDA, that we've locally designated and nominated. So if we're excluding those areas, I don't think we have numbers on that. What we have is separately on the growth geographies, which is the areas that they are studying. And we have been starting to study that in GIS, what the amounts would be discounted by, but I don't have those numbers available tonight. I can pull up my slides again if we believe
No,
there's
that's
something
okay.
there that
So
we can pull up.
the green circles were the growth areas, and that's based on acreage within the green areas, right? Stephen?
Yeah, let me go ahead and pull up my screen again. We can talk about that particular slide.
So I guess I don't necessarily need the exact number. My comment is, how many acres do we get down to with just with those exclusions, even if you kept the bus routes? How many acres, and then what would be our new RENA number? Because I think we want to put that in the letter. And
right.
then,
and we can absolutely do a calculation of that.
And streets are not included, correct?
You know, the way that they've mapped those geographies, it's unclear if it's based on the parcel layer data, like within boundaries of lots, or if it's exclusive of the right of way. I mean, that's something that's not super abundantly clear from what they've provided. We have calculated different numbers.
Okay, so put that in the letter as one of the areas of that should not be counted as any streets. Because I did see a map when Liz and I met with Paul that had some little purple areas, and it only showed the residential parcels. It didn't show it on the streets. It didn't show it on commercial retail parcels. So it'd be good to have in the letter to show how much of a reduction. And then one of the things that I think Paul told me was that we may potentially be penalized at some point if we aren't building this housing. And my comment is, okay, what if no one wants to build? If we have a downturn or the cost of construction gets so high, apartment complexes are not becoming profitable, especially if with the rent control now. Developers are not seeing it as a huge profit. So how can we force someone to build? And the argument has been, which I don't buy into, is that, well, the city regulating process is too difficult. No, we want your plans complete when you submit. We want you to do it right. We don't want 5 submittals. And so it's not always on the city side that the review time is long. I don't buy that argument. I think the architects need to get their act together more on first submittals. And so what is the repercussion if nobody builds? We're already behind on our numbers. San
No.
Jose has something like 300-400 entitled and no one's building. Paul?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, you know, we've kind of moved into arena discussion now, and what we're really talking about this meeting is the Council of Government, ABAG, the COG, and one of their roles is to do projections, and they project on traffic and household growth. Now, will the Housing Methodology Committee use their projections is still unknown. But to Vice Mayor Gibbons's point, it makes a lot of sense to ensure that ABAG has the correct information when they provide projections. We don't know what that bearing it will have on the RENA methodology, but we just want to make certain that growth projections are commensurate with our understanding. So I wouldn't move too far to RENA. That's the first point. The second point, Madam Mayor, you mentioned about the jobs, and I have the data for jobs. The amount of jobs per ABAG's projections are 1.67 jobs per every household. So we actually have more jobs than housing. And if we were to trying to bring that 1.67 down to 1.4, because I've heard that from the council that would be a better balance. That means we would have to flood the market with 3,400 housing units. So I'm not certain if we really want to throw in jobs in that letter. I think really we should be focusing on those factors and those points that we've identified in terms of how they're capturing, you know, realistic areas that can grow. So for example, you can't build in a perk pond, right? So obviously that needs to be excluded, and they've captured that. So those are the things that we can really kind of focus on in this letter.
Okay, but we are addressing RENA numbers in this letter, right?
No.
Just the plan,
Yeah.
okay.
I will add, not directly. I mean, right now, this is a letter which is directed to Plan Bay Area 2050. RENA is a concurrent process that's going on. And yeah, to Paul's point, the Housing Methodology Committee may choose to use what they've produced as a basis for their assignment of housing numbers. But they haven't decided to do that yet. They're going to be reconvening in August to decide that. Separately, just while on topic, I wanted to kind of circle back to a comment that Vice Mayor Gibbons had made on the PDAs and the assignment of those. Pretty much what I gathered from your comment there was that in Plan Bay Area, ABAG and MTC have adopted option B, which is really studying those additional areas like HRAs and TRAs in addition to our PDA.
Yes, correct.
For communities that haven't provided 50% or more of their eligible PDA area as a PDA. So the comment I'm gathering from you is that you want to make sure that we're more accurate in the pure basis of why they chose to study HRAs and TRAs for the city of Campbell in the first place, when that original map was totally wrong. I mean, you're absolutely right. The Vasona and the Hacienda, those stations, those are on hold. So those aren't currently, I mean, they have to bring that back and pull them. Those are on hold right now. So we can absolutely capture that comment. So I just wanted to make that clear. That was
Liz?
I think.
Sorry, hang on, Liz. I missed Rich raising his hand. He hasn't talked yet, sorry.
Yeah, Rich is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, we have these discussions a lot, you know, with the SB 50s and the CASAs, and now we got this train wreck coming, and I guess when I'm 90 years old, it'll come to fruition and all that. I don't mind if council members want to spend loads and loads of time, and here we are spending an hour. Good luck. I mean, but when the line comes out, staff needs to focus on yada yada for the next few weeks to get this out. That's where I get scared. I need to understand, do we have staff members like Paul Kermorian, like Stephen, we're going to spend time, and if they are, what's not going to get done in the city on something that I suspect is just yet another, we gotta, and I agree with what the mayor said, a lot of things between when
You muted.
it may be one way or the other. So we got to be careful. We cannot just go say, staff, stop. We did this to you 20 times in the last month. Now do it again. Stop everything you're doing and focus on this thing. If the vice mayor wants to go and spend hours and hours, that's her call.
Okay. Liz?
So I was just saying, this has been a process that's ongoing for a year, and it's kind of the do or die focus time now. I do think that it's part of our responsibility, as Councilmember Bybee said, to do our duty to respond to this. We're asked to provide feedback, and we know there's some substantive errors, and it would be, I think, derelict if we didn't respond. I think it's the council's will, but I feel very strongly and have for quite a while now that it's appropriate. Director Kamoyan has said correctly that we really aren't talking about RENA, and we really aren't talking about jobs. There is some job information here. But some other comments I would make to the letter are one of the things that their base map assumptions, they didn't use the housing element. I don't know what document they actually used. Some other cities and counties have all questioned the base maps. And for example, when the Rincon project or the Revere project or the railway project, those are actually units that are built at, and we have several in other places, at 70 units an acre. And our housing element assumes, I think, 15 units an acre. So somewhere we should have some kind of a comment that clarifies that a lot of the area that's highlighted in the bubbles has been developed recently, has been developed in significantly higher units per acre from the housing units at 15 or the zoning at 27 or whatever. So I think it's important to say that many of the city's been very proactive in doing these, and I'm saying these things because of what the mayor asked the city attorney for. We need to put all of this in so we can rely on it later. So we want to demonstrate that we have made 15% of our housing units affordable on every project more than 10 units. We have done density bonus units on major projects, which also result in the higher 70 units an acre, all of that kind of thing. So I think clarifying, I do think that schools and churches should be excluded for now because legislation is going to change it later. But right now, it's important to control what we can control and not to make an assumption that those are going to be sold off. Right now, they aren't. So I think we just stick to the basics there. And I would also include a statement that Campbell is currently the densest city in the county. And that we have a jobs housing ratio of, and I think we're close to 1.6, if you can correct me on that. So, and then adding the three most recent bus maps, which go to the drastic changes that have been made in the last 2 to 3 years to reinforce the fact that we can control that and to set our housing policy. I think that was the mayor's strong point as well. So those are the kind of things that I think should be added to the letter. And staff may likely come up with many more once they get into this.
Thank you. So, Rich?
Yeah, that line keeps coming up. We are the densest. We're the densest because, out of the cities around here, we don't have big open hills like Saratoga does and Los Gatos does and Cupertino does. And the only ones that are dense are the ones without the hills like Sunnyvale. So it's this whatever because we don't have a big mountain next to us to say where they're.
It's still true.
It's
No, I didn't say it wasn't true. I know people like to bring it up.
okay. To address the Councilmember Waterman's concern about staff time, I go back to what I asked Bill. If we don't state it now, we don't get to argue and sue or appeal later. And I think it's going to be important as these numbers get pushed through that we leave our doors open to have potential appeal process later. So I want as much as we can on the issues that are, especially all the big ones, that is all included in this letter. So any closing comments? We have about 5 minutes. Paul, are you ready?
Just a quick question about that for Bill. Is that relevant, Bill, if we would, as a city, challenge it or sue on our own versus joining a group of cities that opposed what's sanctioned on us or put on us?
Well,
I don't see.
the
I don't see us taking
issues
you on.
need to be raised by someone, whether it was another city in that group or us.
Okay.
Certainly, if it was just us, yes, we absolutely have to raise the issues ourselves.
Assuming that we are proceeding with a lawsuit on our own.
No, it's all issues have to be raised during this
Okay.
phase of input so that later they're appealable, whether we join in with other cities or not. If it's not raised, so if we don't raise it and no one else does, guess what? We can't appeal it later.
Okay.
So I'm being proactive. Liz?
I just offer that going back, probably 2 RENA cycles, Sharon Piero challenged and successfully negotiated a reduction in Campbell's numbers because of the discussions and statistics and all of that. So it is possible to do on a city level. It may be harder now, but it is a known thing. And the advantage we have is that the Planning Collaborative chose, and the Cities Association, as Councilmember Resnikoff knows, chose not to do a RENA sub-region. So we are going to get our numbers on our own. And that will give us more flexibility too.
Okay, so we are at close to 7:20. I want a little break before 7:30. Does anybody have any comments left? Stephen, you're good? You got what you need?
Yeah, I've captured all your feedback. It was all great, and I've got plenty to work with. So thank you very much.
And the last thing I would say is it would be great if you could, without too much effort, create a map showing what's left after all these exclusions.
We can definitely do that. I'll even add that it's already in the works.
Okay, well, maybe a lot of work. I don't want too much effort.
So Madam Mayor, moving forward, we're going to go ahead and incorporate the changes that we've heard or the input that we've heard tonight in a letter and then get it over for your signature so we could send it prior to the deadline.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to take a break. I'm going to turn my audio and video off and we're coming back at 7:30. Did someone say something?
I said thanks to Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. Nice work. I like your slides.
Thank you. And good evening. You guys have a great night.
You too.
I know.
Hi, everybody.
Test, good evening. Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
All right.
Can you
Hi,
hear me?
Margarita. Yep, I see Roger, Margarita, Michael. We got Ellen, Katie. Got a bunch of people. Will, okay. What? I don't know how this works, Cecil, but how do we keep the council on the front 9 screens? Because right now, no council members on the front screen.
I think if we turn off the video for those that aren't speaking, for staff or consultants, until the item comes up, that the council will be promoted to the top.
Okay, so it looks like Rich and Paul aren't on yet, or Liz. Hi, Dan.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Rich is there, so now we need Paul. There's, hi, Daniel. City Clerk, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so we got 1 minute and we need Paul. Yeah, Liz, are you waving your hand or just holding it up?
I just wanted to let you know I
You just went on mute.
want to pull item 5, just FYI.
Okay. All right, do we have Paul? Yep, we're all here now. It's 7:30. We're ready, Andrea?
We're ready.
I call to order this regular meeting of the City of Campbell City Council on this Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. The regular meeting is conducted via telecommunication and is compliant with provisions of the Brown Act and Executive Order N2920 issued by the governor. The City Council meeting is being live streamed on Channel 26, the city's website, and YouTube. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Here.
Councilmember Bybee,
Present.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Here,
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Here.
Mayor Landry.
I guess I'm here. Just kidding. Now we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Are we ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is special presentations and proclamations, and I see none. I see no communications and petitions. At this point, we're on to oral requests. This is reserved for people wishing to address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda. Those members of the public wishing to participate are asked to register. There is an item on the agenda with the registration website. After registering, you will receive a confirmation of joining, and speakers are allowed up to 2 minutes. The law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking action, but we may direct something accordingly to staff. I understand we have at least one oral request.
We did have someone to register to speak under oral requests. However, I am not seeing them logged on at the moment.
Okay. How do we deal with that if they, for some reason, are having technical problems? Do we let them jump in later, like after consent?
I'll defer to Bill.
Yes, if the problem is on our end, then yes, we should let them come in later. If they're simply delinquent, well,
Yeah, we're not going to wait.
that's on them.
Okay, so Andrea, we're going to go through consent calendar. At the end, if you could let me know if they have logged back on. Otherwise, that's the last, then that's it. They don't get to come in later. Okay,
Sure, I can do that.
thank you. So at this point, we're on to the consent calendar. Are there any other council members that wish to pull an item? Liz has pulled number 5, and I'm going to pull 7 through 11 to make comment. So can I have a vote on 1 through 4 and 6? Or a motion, I'm sorry, a motion.
move consent for those items.
I'll second, and with the notation that there is a desk item on 3.
Okay. And Paul's shaking his head yes. So
Yes,
Andrea, roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons. You're muted.
Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up. There we go. Does that count as a vote?
Mayor Waterman.
No,
Mayor.
okay. Come on, it's me. All right, that passes. Liz, you're number 5. You better be able to unmute. Nope. You're muted. There we go.
That again. Thank you. Apologize. I apologize for not catching this earlier. On item number 5, I think it's page 16 of the packet. The comment is not when the buildings are built, what happens when they're sold. It's when buildings are entitled and then sold? That was the question. ENTITLED. Entitled. And then the comment about FAR was related to the applicants was why should we give them higher height when we limited the adjacent parcel to 50 feet? Sorry, I didn't. pick
Okay. All right. So, want a motion on 5?
I move item 5 with corrections.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. Thank you. That passes. So I'm going to put 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 under general comment. I just want to thank all the bargaining units for assisting us and helping try to balance our budget this year. Things have been a little painful, but we've worked together as a team and we're getting closer to a balanced budget. I think Brian said we're down less than $1 million now. I think it's closer to 600. So I just want to thank all the bargaining units and I want to thank our HR department, Jill, specifically on bargaining, and Brian for participating in this process. So with that, I'll take a motion.
I move items 7 through 12.
11.
7 through 11.
Right.
I'll second, but I believe that the numbers are incorrect. Number 7 is actually the accepting improvements for the Harriet Avenue project.
Oh,
And
sorry.
the MOUs are the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, so you want to correct the motion? 8 through 12.
So move.
I'll second.
Wait, the items that were pulled were 7 through 11. Everything else has already been voted upon as part of the motion on the consent calendar. So you really do need to move 7 through 11.
Okay, but we also didn't do 13 in the motion.
So we'll do
That's
that.
the advocacy principles.
So thank
Okay,
you.
so
for-
let's do this. Let's make a motion on number 7.
I move item number 7.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. So now, Bill, because we didn't talk about 12, I'm going to group 9 through 12 into someone's motion. Is that good? Okay.
That's fine.
We have to do 9 through 11, I believe.
No, because we never talked about 12.
All right.
Except I do believe the motion for the consent calendar did include 12 already, even if you didn't talk about it.
I said 1 through 4 and number, Andrea, what do we have down on the motion?
I have that everything aside from 7 through 11.
Okay, so 12's been approved, but my comment went to that group too. So we have a motion on 7 through 11.
I move items 7 through 11.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. So 13 counted in the first motion, Andrea? Yes, okay. I think this is the point, I might have missed it earlier with mayor's announcements. I think there's some slides. Do we have slides up? I'd like to take this time to give you, the opportunity to invite you to the City of Campbell's annual State of the City address. Please join me virtually as we discuss the current state of the city recent accomplishments, and information on upcoming projects. The State of City address will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, July 29th. You can learn how to participate by visiting campbellca.gov/virtual SOTC. And I want to thank our our public relations. Give special thanks to Letitia and Margarita for throwing this together. I kind of like, what is this, like retro 50s maybe, or I don't know what it's called, but it's cute. All right, next slide. The City of Campbell will be holding a general municipal election consolidated with the statewide general election on Tuesday, November 3rd at 2020 to elect one council member in District 6 and one council member in District 2, each for a full 4-year term. The nomination period is now open and will close Friday, August 7th, 2020. Nomination paperwork will be available during that time at the city clerk's office by appointment only. For more information, contact the city's clerk's office at 408-866-2117 or clerks with the S office at campbellca.gov. Thank you. Next one. The City of Campbell continues to work closely with our partnering agencies to monitor how the coronavirus is impacting our communities. We are actively monitoring this information provided by them and the United States Centers for Disease Control and have been reviewing their guidance that's been provided by the County Public Health Department. We continue to take proactive steps to prioritize the health and safety of our employees and our community members. We focus is to maintain essential services and to keep you informed. Next slide. For anybody who's needing help and needs to find resources, call 211. You can also go to 211.org. I think it's very important during these times that we not only take care of our body health, but we also take care of our brain health. I was given some statistics this last week regarding how many emergency and or service calls have occurred around mental health. I like to call it brain health issues. Last year in 2018, by this date, there were only 413 referrals received or calls. And as of this date, there's 1,026 calls and referrals that have been received. So if you're out there and you need help, just know you're not alone and please call 211. Thank you. Next slide. The County of Santa Clara directly provides free COVID-19 testing through the Public Health Department and through Valley Medical Center hospitals and other private clinics like Kaiser and PAMP. There are several of these drive-through locations throughout the county. To find a clinic or a community testing site closest to you to make an appointment or to be able to show up, please visit sccgov.org/CV19 testing. Next slide. Santa Clara County Library District has contactless curbside services available Monday through Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. at all 8 county library locations. Patrons can go online to place holds on materials, then make an appointment to collect the requested books or movies from the library. For more information about this service, please visit our website at sccld.org. Next slide. The DMV is providing an automatic 1-year extension to California's age 70 or older with a non-commercial driver's license with an expiration date between March 1st and December 31st. While the new extensions are automatic, drivers will not receive a new card or paper extension in the mail. For more information and other DMV services, please go to dmv.ca.gov. Clipper Start is an 18-month pilot program initiated by Bay Area transit agencies and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission that uses the Clipper Transit fare payment system to reduce the cost of transportation for adults with limited income. To learn more about the Clipper Start program and applying online, go to clipperstartcar.com. Please continue to visit our website at campbellca.gov for up-to-date information on COVID-19, adjusted city services, canceled events, police department services, the Campbell Community Center, and other business resources. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to public hearings and introductions of ordinance.
Mayor
Number
Landry,
4. Yes.
we do have Jeanette on the call. If you'd like to let her.
Yes, I forgot to check back. Yes, please. She was our open oral request person.
Oh, thank you. Kid bedtime. I may have, what I was hoping to speak on was the matter of downtown Campbell and discussing, or I'm sorry, the Campbell Avenue closing and discussing the possibility for fitness businesses and personal care services. And when I registered, it didn't give me the option for that. So I think that I put it in the wrong spot. So
yeah, you did. So wait till we have that item on the agenda, and thank you for calling in. We look forward to hearing from you later. All right, so now we're on number 14, placing the cost of abating hazardous vegetation on the property tax assessment rolls. And we have a presenter, our senior planner, Daniel Pharma.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. This is the third meeting of the annual weed abatement program. The county weed abatement staff has prepared a list of properties that had identified as having weeds within the year, a handful of which actually required abatement by county contracted staff. Staff has presented a resolution that will place the cost of those services onto the next year's tax assessment roll. And that is the recommended action for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council members? No, seeing none. I open the public hearing. City Clerk, do we have anybody who wants to speak on this item?
We do not.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing. And I will now go bring back to council for either a discussion or a motion. Paul, you have your light off, or you're unmuted, Paul?
Yep, I'll make a motion. I just got to get back to that screen. I'll move that the city council adopt a resolution placing the cost of abating hazardous vegetation on the property tax assessment roll.
Second.
Rich, second that. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye, that motion passes. Next
Thank
is
you.
item number 15, the Lighting and Landscape District fiscal year 2021 confirming assessments. And it looks like we have, I have to read the first part now, right, Andrea?
Correct.
Okay. This is the time and place set for hearing public comments on the engineer's report for the City of Campbell's Lighting and Landscape Assessment District and on the levy and collection of the proposed assessment for fiscal year 2021. These proceedings are conducted pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. The engineer's report prepared by the city engineer consists of the boundaries of the assessment district, the proposed improvements and or maintenance and operation of that district, the estimate of costs for those improvements and or maintenance, and the proposed assessment upon those lots and parcels of land within the proposed district. Any one of these items may be the subject of protests or endorsements. Should anybody wish to speak on these items, they are asked clearly to identify yourself and the property owned by you so that the statement may be correctly recorded. The hearing is declared open, and I will ask the city clerk to report on the various notices given in connection with the hearing, and ask the city clerk to report on the written protests that have been received, if any. Following the city clerk's reports, the city engineer is asked to provide a statement regarding the nature of the lighting and landscape district, which will be followed by public testimony or comments. City clerk?
Notices have been published as required by the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972 and Section 54954.6 of the California Government Code. Affidavits and certificates of publishing are on file in my office. A copy of the engineer's report prepared by the city engineer was filed in my office on June 1st, 2020, and has been open to public inspection since that time. No protests have been received by the city.
Thank you. I think we have a statement on behalf of the city engineer. Hi, Roger.
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, so the City of Campbell Lighting and Landscaping District is established annually to support the maintenance and operation of the city's parks, landscaping, public lighting, traffic signal systems, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. Assessments proposed for fiscal year 2020-2021 are as shown in the engineer's report and total approximately $1.2 million. The proposed fiscal year 2020/2021 assessments are at the same rate as last fiscal year 2019-2020. No increases in the rate are being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. The microphone is now available if we do have any public testimony. Should anybody wish to speak, when you are asked to clearly identify yourself and the property you are owned to be recorded correctly. Back to the city clerk, or is anybody now there?
There is not.
Okay, all right, the public hearing is closed and we'll bring it back for council action. Does anybody will have comments or make a motion? Liz?
I would make a motion that the city council adopt a resolution overruling protests, if any, approving the engineer's report, ordering the improvements, and confirming the diagram and assessments.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye, thank you. That motion passes. Now to unfinished business and the highlight of our meeting tonight, the temporary closure of East Campbell Avenue. Economic Development Specialist Michael Thomas has a presentation or discussion.
Yes, I have a brief presentation, but I'll keep it short so we can keep the line moving. Good evening, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. Before you tonight is a recommendation to adopt a resolution to facilitate the expansion of outdoor dining areas onto East Campbell Avenue in support of downtown businesses. July 7th, council authorized staff to make preparations for closing East Campbell Avenue to vehicle traffic between 3rd Street and Railway Avenue for this purpose. However, the cross streets of Central Avenue, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Streets will remain open. The council decided closing portions of these portions of East Campbell Avenue for at least 30 days with staff evaluation of operational safety, traffic, access, and commercial impacts after 2 weeks' time, followed by any necessary modifications. This direction included preparation of a resolution as required by the California Vehicle Code to allow for temporary street closures. However, direction was not given to staff to include outdoor expansion of other businesses, but council can amend the resolution to include other businesses, and therefore a revised resolution is included as a desk item this evening for council's consideration. Of course, the closure's purpose is to provide safety and protection for people from interactions with motor vehicles and enable social distancing and necessary for the safety and protection of persons using the street while it's temporarily closed. Also, the Campbell Municipal Code, Chapter 10.24, authorizes the traffic engineer to prohibit stopping or parking in any place where it is necessary to eliminate unusual traffic hazards with appropriate signage, prohibit or restrict parking of vehicles with timed parking in business districts where fair commerce would likely be impeded for lack of parking for customers. Street closure and outdoor expansion can take effect as soon as practical to allow for advanced noticing so they can make preparations for the outdoor expansion, and staff can install barriers and signage. Businesses wishing to participate in outdoor expansion must secure a permit from the city, whether that be an encroachment permit, for example. And then that's coming on the heels of yesterday, where the governor announced guidance for businesses to perform operations outdoors, such as hair salons and nail salons for counties on the state's monitoring list for 3 consecutive days, which includes Santa Clara County. However, those businesses would have to comply with the county issued mandatory directives for those specific businesses for those activities to occur outdoors. And so that leads to, guidelines for businesses to expand outdoors, and staff is drafting guidelines to that effect. But council direction will help shape those guidelines, preparation and completion. So that concludes my remarks at this time, and I'll send it back to you.
Thank you. I want to make the first clarification. When we voted before, or we discussed this before, I was not under the impression we were restricting it to restaurants. I was under the impression we were allowing any business on there that was legally allowed, that they could move out into the street. Because you use the word very specific, adding the word restaurant in there.
Mm-hmm. That's because I know that came up in the discussion, but no other business types were mentioned.
But didn't we say retail?
I do not recall that, and also in the clerk's notes, I mentioned expansion of outdoor dining.
Okay. Well, there is an alternative resolution that did come out by our city attorney.
Yes.
That did add in retail. And now, because of the salons, we do have, I think Liz said 3 or 4 in the area there. 5? Is that the 5, or are you raising your hand? 5. So I think it's only fair that any business in the loop should be allowed to open up outside, and we can have more discussion now. We want to start with Rich.
But Madam Mayor, if I could just jump in there. So when you said any business within the loop, so we have side streets there. Our whole focus was closing Campbell Avenue down.
I guess that's what I meant. Anything that is within the area that we designated closed.
Okay, so just Campbell Avenue, because that's where we've been focusing all of our efforts.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my question too. So maybe I can ask as a question, Paul, and you can answer it because it's confusing. So I don't believe, and somebody can correct me, that there's any salons, quote unquote, hairstyling and all that, spas on Campbell itself. They're on the side streets.
There's one next to Flights.
All right, so there's one, but most of the 5 you said are on First, Second, and Central, correct? So
Palazzi Studios on the corner, right across from Starbucks.
I mean, beyond the one, is there? But most of the 5 are not. They're on the side, right? Before we get
no. So let me ask a clarifying question. The one salon.
Well, let's get mine answered first.
There's a barber. There's a barber shop over by Keys. There's Palazzi Studios.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. If a salon, let me ask it better then. If a salon is on one of the side streets, this is not going to affect them, correct? Doesn't help them because they don't have any Campbell Ave fronting. And that's not just salons, that's anything that's on First Street, Second Street, or Central and doesn't have presence on Campbell Ave will not get.
Bill's raising his hand, Rich.
I just
Oh,
wanted to.
I'm done with the question. That's my question. I don't know the answer.
I just wanted to point out as the alternative resolution is worded, it is worded to apply to all businesses within the Loop Street. So we would have to make a change to limit it to just Campbell Avenue if that's the direction of the council.
Okay, I'm still a little, all right, Mary, you can take that one, or I don't. We forget about whether it's salon or not. If somebody has a.
If it helps, I have a map showing the location of different uses in downtown. It's color coded based by use. I can bring that up on my screen.
Well, I'm not.
Let's not bring it up yet. Let's ask questions.
Again, I'm specifically asking if somebody is physically on Campbell Ave, whether it's a restaurant or other retail, they can set up, I would think, on the street, Campbell Ave, because that will be shut down. If somebody has something on, well, even Brown Chicken, Brown Cow, which doesn't have a presence on the main street, is it? I'm trying to understand. Do they then have the right to? They have to ask somebody for help. Who's going to divvy that up? Is what the ultimate question.
So staff is working on guidelines to allow expansion out into the street. Now, in the case of businesses, those are for businesses fronting the street. As for in the case of a business like Brown Chicken, Brown Cow, they would have to get permission from another tenant allowed to operate in front of the space.
Okay, that's my question. So anybody that's doesn't have physical right on the curb thing would have to ask permission from some other.
If I could jump in,
Yeah.
Councilmember Waterman, you raised an interesting point that we have not yet drafted in the guidelines. We're still working on them, and we're going to use this meeting and your comments to refine it. This is a perfect comment. Now, the building that Brown Chicken, Brown Cow's in does front Campbell Avenue, but I believe there's another tenant there. So we'll need to work out a sharing, if you will, of that space immediately in front of that building.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann, you're next in line. Then Paul.
I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, yeah, two questions, and one's an extension of the question just asked. So if Brown Chicken can take a space in front of a retail store that doesn't want to use it, which is fine, where's the limits of that, right? So can Water Tower Kitchen move on to Campbell? I mean, that's something we have to address, right? What's the limit if you have space in front of your place and you'd like to give it to someone else? What are the parameters of where those other places can come from? That's one question I think we need to answer. The second one is, it was mentioned they'll need a permit, an encroachment permit. Are there other permits they might need? What are the maximum number of types of permits that are going to be required here? I think the businesses have told me so far they really don't know what this is. They don't know how to get them. They don't know when they're going to get them, how quickly. So is it just an encroachment permit? Is there another permit they might need? Michael or
Bill?
There are two types of permits that are mentioned in the resolution. One is the encroachment permit. The other option would be a special event permit, which really contemplates somebody, say the DCBA, taking over and managing the entire space.
so that's like what the chamber does for the street events.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so in likelihood, this is going to be individual encroachment permits, probably. I don't foresee anybody immediately anyway stepping up and doing that. So do we have a process how does a business find out how to get that permit, where to apply, how fast are we committing to giving it to them? How do they get details on that tonight?
Michael or Paul?
The encroachment permit process is handled by the Public Works Department, and perhaps the Public Works Director, Dr. Burza, can speak to that.
But I could add on to that. So as part of Councilmember Resnikoff, members of the council, as part of this process, we're going to need to perform a pretty in-depth outreach and helping business understand what permit processes they need to go through and linking them to the Public Works Department, the very department that actually issues the permits, will be important. I know Michael and I have been talking about ways in which we would get the word out. I know Ken Johnson of the chamber will certainly help and partner with the city. But what we're hoping from this meeting is to capture all your residual comments, input those in the guidelines, and then the implementation is really key to this discussion, because we want to make certain the businesses, first of all, are informed, and secondly, we'll have enough time to plan for any acquisition of tables and chairs and umbrellas and tents, what have you, to then install. So we would like to kind of understand when you want to see this go into play, because the businesses, and understandably, are confused at this point,
Right.
because we haven't yet really communicated with them. So communication is going to be a big key to understanding permit processes and next steps.
I agree. And on the last point you made, you hit it. They don't know when can we start, how fast. I mean, they can't just start in an hour and be there, right? They gotta do some planning and maybe even get some staff. But it's unclear to a lot of businesses. And to me, frankly, it may be out on Friday, but is that realistic? Is it really going to happen that fast? Is this weekend a trial and we start, or is it going? So that's kind of things I'm hoping tonight will come away with.
I agree.
Also, one question while Director Caproso's there, is there a charge for an encroachment permit? Are we waiving that if there is?
There is typically a charge, and we would likely not be exercising that. I would hope that council would incorporate that into any motion so that there's some formal action behind it. But there's typically a charge. Our bigger concern would be that they've got the appropriate permit, and as part of the requirement for obtaining an encroachment permit, we do ask for some proof of insurance or liability coverage,
Okay.
so that the activity being conducted then in the street, all of the liability does not fall on the city.
Typically, just so you know, I'm very supportive of waiving. Typically, what does that fee run? Just so we know what we're waiving. Roughly?
500.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be supportive to help them get going. The last thing we need to do is burden them with another expense right now.
Yeah, the resolution proposes waiving permit fees.
Good, thank you.
Ann, did I get you already? Yeah, Rich, back to you. We've got questions still.
Quick question. We talked before about possibly using the city lot in front of Abellagio and whatever else is there, Opas and stuff. Is that part of this or not? Or is that possibility or not?
Use of that parking lot was not included in the scope of this resolution, but if that's something the council wants to discuss.
Well, I would say it's an addition to. You've already passed resolutions allowing for uses in expansions on sidewalks and uses in parking lots. So that still stands, because the timing of it correlates with the state of the emergency, and that still exists, as you know. So this would be an addition to.
Right, but this is a little different because it's a city lot and not a private lot, right?
Liz, are you done, Rich? I'm sorry. You done? Okay, Liz.
Okay, I have lots of comments. I'll try and do just questions. So I'm agreeing with the conversations and questions that have been raised. I appreciate the waiving of the fee, and we need an expedited process. Is it possible? So to me, the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, the issue of the encroachment permit is really about insurance. Can we possibly do an encroachment permit, a mass encroachment permit by block? So that we have 4 or 5, whatever we're going to do, blocks of encroachment permit, so that the business can focus on submitting the insurance documentation and a layout with their boundaries identified. Is there any way to do that? I'm looking to simplify.
Todd?
that I guess I really don't know. I appreciate the effort to simplify, but I'm not sure that that really does, because the encroachment permit we're trying to use an existing permit system for something that it really wasn't designed for, because we don't
Agreed.
really want to take, we don't want to go down a different path and create something new. So an encroachment permit is typically assigned to an individual or an individual business. And so it's for the area that they would be using. I think that's why we also considered including this notion of a special event permit, because if somebody like DCBA or the chamber wanted to manage it, that would kind of be the umbrella permit to then kind of incorporate all of the entire layout, and it could be done block by block, and insurance under that, rather than asking each business to make a modification to their existing policy, which essentially is what we get during construction projects, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm thinking of is that we're going to end up with a Mondrian type painting of the sidewalk. We've got a chunk here, a chunk there, a chunk here, and a chunk there. And I was just trying to see if there was a way to make it simple. Maybe we need to.
Are we at questions still?
I am trying to do a question.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Maybe we need to do an emotion that allows both of those options based on your response. Okay. You asked the one on non-presence on Campbell. Signage. We talked about that. I'm just going through my notes. I think, I think the only other questions are more discussions. So thank you.
Okay. So my questions are what everybody has asked so far. I see Anne, are you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I have an additional question that came to mind after this discussion related to the parking lots. One, the private parking lot there across from a key next to the Villa Ragusa off that enters Campbell Avenue. Are you familiar with that one, Todd? That's a private lot, and the access to that has that been worked out? And then the access to the parking lot at the end of Campbell Avenue by Railway.
Yes. So this might be a good time for to answer your question with a bit of extra information, if that's okay with the mayor at this point.
Well, let's keep it to questions, because I have a couple, and I'm just going to try to summarize and break up how we're going to discuss this. So,
okay. I think the short answer is that there is a way to do the traffic layout and traffic closure as we discussed at the last meeting, where we retain access to the parking lot, the public parking lot directly adjacent to Ainsley Park, between Ainsley Park and Blue Line Pizza, and to retain access to the private parking lot down closer to 3rd. But that could also, it presents some challenges for how we would do the closure. So I want to tell you that those are possible, and we believe that we have a layout that would successfully do that, but it may lead to some other challenges along the way as well. And as we get more into the discussion, I'd be happy to address those as well.
Okay. Brian, real quick first to you. You had a map that was this block, and it showed where the barricades, the initial first round of where the barricades might be. Do you happen to have that that we could show on the screen? It might help later. Or
I don't have that digitally. That was provided by Todd and his staff. I don't know if he has a digital copy of that.
I believe that, I mean, we did come up with a black and white legend of barricades and signs, but I believe that the better map to show might be the color map that Michael Thomas has prepared. And
okay.
If we could get Michael to bring that map up, that may help facilitate the discussion.
Yeah. I do think so. So Michael, if you can start getting that ready, and then I'm going to ask Todd, have the barricades been delivered?
They have.
When do you start installing them?
Well, that's
That's
a
our
good,
question.
that's a question that's probably going to be based on what we hear tonight. So I will tell you that based on our last conversation with council, we were trying to move as quickly as possible. And we were moving in the direction of having the closure implemented hopefully by the end of this week. So we've done a couple of site walks with County Fire. That there are some concerns and some modifications that we had to make that are slightly different than our last conversation. So I'll update you regarding those at an appropriate time. But we were working toward closing the street, as we typically do for festivals and farmers market on Thursday morning, installing the barricades over the course of that day, then having County Fire come down during that day and kind of take a dry run to make sure that we left them adequate space for the turning radius of their equipments. And then at that point, we would call it good, and we would fill the barricades with water so that they could be left in place and would provide the level of vehicle protection that we need. Hearing some of what I'm starting to pick up on in this discussion is that if the businesses are not ready for this, we don't want to close it prematurely. So I would recommend that if we defer at all, we simply defer to the end of next week, because I think we need the better part of a work week to do the prep work and get county and ensure that we can get County Fire down. So our current target is this Thursday, because we think a Thursday would work better than trying to do this on a Friday. But if that's deemed as moving too fast or getting too far ahead of our businesses, I would suggest looking at the next Thursday. But I think we could meet either. I think we could meet either implementation if the council is comfortable with either one.
And how long does it take to get their encroachment permit, considering they may not have a drawing yet?
We don't really need anything fancy. It's almost as though if they could take something off of Google Maps and add and kind of sketch it out, we're generally pretty good with that. I should point out to you that we did something similar in the city-owned lot that was mentioned earlier, and we allowed one of the adjacent restaurants to take up a portion of that parking lot by following the encroachment permit process on that. And I think we were able to turn everything around in a couple of days on that. But as you know, it's a little challenging right now because everything we're doing remotely. And so it's you can't just walk up to the counter anymore. So it can take several days. And I will also tell you that this is a little challenging because we may not have as much space to play with as we would like because of some of the clearances and requirements that we knew County Fire was going to want. So that's not a surprise. But when you start actually physically measuring that, it might not be as much space as we were expecting for individual businesses to play with. So I don't know if it's better to march into this notion of every business gets to kind of first dibs on their immediate frontage, or would we be better off taking a little more of a holistic approach where we could hopefully include either the chamber or DCBA and talk about maybe what the final configuration of this should look like, because on certain blocks, if we find that maybe there's interest only on one side of the street or the other, we can shift the fire lane to accommodate that. And I don't think we know enough about that at this point to know if those blocks exist, and if they exist, which ones they are.
Okay, so Michael, you might want to bring up that slide.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to try to rein us into topics. So
Can you folks see the color-coded map?
Can you zoom in some more?
Okay.
There's like sidebars and stuff that looks like your program you might want to close.
Okay.
Zoom in a little more.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, so red is restaurants.
Red is restaurants and cafes. Light blue is retail. Purple is personal services. Orange is office. Brown is the Keys building, so it has a mix of restaurant, office, and apartments. This right here, these colors right here, these are professional services. So for example, this is Darlene Fisher. I said orange is office, light blue is retail. Here's this color is restaurant. Green is a standalone bar, but those are closed. This gray color here is studio. And then this chartreuse color here is auto sales and service.
Okay, and the yellow sections are the current proposal to close those yellow strips down the middle.
Correct. And those streets are typically 40 feet wide.
Okay, and are you, you're showing keeping the city lot up by Blue Line Pizza? Is that going to then go out through the alley? Todd said something earlier about maybe not wanting to cross the tracks coming out.
I think we would, at this point, we were proposing to leave both access points open because there is a flashing red light if you were to exit that parking lot back onto Campbell. So at this point, I think it's our proposal would be to leave both points open because although some people are familiar with the alleyway exit, we also know that it can get blocked with delivery trucks sometimes, or if a vehicle's coming the opposite way. So the initial proposal, I think, is that we would try to carry access both in and out there. I think the challenging part for that is trying to sign it in advance such that if you're a westbound vehicle and you're approaching from, say, the Pruneyard area, how do we sign that in such a way that we convey to drivers that Campbell East, while that section of Campbell is closed, that parking lot is still open. So this may take a little bit of extra help on social media and helping and asking the restaurants to, you know, if they're going to have curbside delivery, that they may actually want to suggest to their customers where they park. And then conversely, on the other end of town there is the parking lot that Councilmember Bybee asked about. And that's where we would also kind of have to shift the closure in by almost a half a block there to allow access to that private parking lot just east of North 3rd there as well.
Okay, so let's.
Just if I may, there's actually a hair salon in the Keys building. Just at the ground floor of the Keys building has a hair salon.
Yeah, he mentioned Brown was mixed uses.
Yeah, but it's one of the hair salons.
Okay, so Michael, you may need to be switching back and forth. Can you take this down so I can see everybody?
Sure.
And then we'll bring it back up.
Yeah, let me know when. Sure, certainly.
Okay, so my first question, it sounds like putting these barricades out on Thursday could potentially be pretty, what's the word for it? I don't want to say anything wrong, but it sounds like it's going to get confusing. Although we did commit to putting the barricades out on Thursday, but we don't know who went where and all these issues. And then to get the fire truck through, what is the consensus of council of whether we put them out this Thursday, or I would almost say next Tuesday, so it gives you some days in prep before the weekend. So what's the council thoughts? Rich, let's start with you. Should we close Thursday or next week?
Mayor Landry,
yes.
Can I say just before you give staff direction, you might want to take public comments, see if it affects your direction to us.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I forgot. Public. So let's open the public meeting, public comment period. And I think we have one or two speakers. Andrea?
Yes, if we can let Jeanette Holsworth speak.
Okay. How many do we have?
Just two.
Okay. You got 2 minutes. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi. Oh, am I unmuted?
Yep, you're
okay.
here.
Thank you all so much for all the thought that you're putting into this. I definitely appreciate it. My business sits actually out, and really more of what I'm bringing to the table with this not being in the downtown section. My business sits on the corner of Campbell Avenue and Foote Avenue on private property. So what I'm hoping that might be able to be included in these changes is that, an expansion for the guidance that has been released for use on public property, or I'm sorry, private property, which is currently only extended now to written as such for businesses that do restaurants and retail, and hoping that that could be extended to those with I honestly couldn't tell you what kind of permit I hold, but fitness studios, personal care businesses, that type of thing. So that's the extent of my comments. So thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Where did you say your business is located?
The address is 471 East Campbell Avenue. And so we're the strip where there's the liquor store, Rita's, a personal training studio, which is mine, Strike Brewery, and the dry cleaner. So it's tucked between, off the corner of Campbell Avenue and Foote Avenue on the east side of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
I think, sorry.
Thank you. And then next speaker.
Ken Johnson.
Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Ken Johnson, Executive Director of the Campbell Chamber. And just a couple of thoughts. First, businesses have had so much to deal with. And for most of them, that meant being closed for a couple of months with no business. And I can tell you that with the continuing changes and the unknown outcome of the closing of East Campbell Avenue, it's just another stressor that a lot of them are having to deal with. And for many, it's causing them a lot of concern. So I love the idea of Thursday being a test, putting the barricades out. They'll get an opportunity to see what it's going to look like. The fire department can do what they need to do. And then I like the idea of taking them down. And before the actual closure of the streets, the downtown businesses need to know what the rules are and what's expected of them. So as Paul Crimoine said, implementation is going to be the key. For the retail businesses, parking for me is what I've heard is going to be the biggest issue. And I saw on the map that Michael Thomas had that looks like the north-south streets had a no parking on there. That's something I would love to talk about. And even though enforcement is going to be difficult in those areas, parking for retail businesses is going to be really important. They're the ones who are feeling most stressed by this, of this whole thing. So the ultimate goal is this. We all want to bring people to downtown Campbell to shop and dine in an environment that they know is safe and welcoming. And in order to do that, for me, at least with the festival, signage and marketing is going to be the key. And that's going to come from starting to anticipate unintended consequences for what we're doing here. And my recommendation would be do not do anything until all the businesses know what's going on and have an opportunity to know what the rules are for them and how they can best maximize their chances for this and to get their input. So we as a chamber are happy to participate in any way we can. I'm happy to meet with Todd to see if we can help with the permitting process or whatever needs to happen with that. Whatever we can do it. I wish we could wave the magic wand. Everything would just work out well for everybody to begin with, but I just wouldn't go forward without making sure that there's a plan in place so everybody knows what's going on.
So thank you, Ken. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned about putting the barricades out this Thursday and then taking them down and bringing them back. Was that what you said?
So I know the signs are already out for the street closure, and Todd is obviously the one who can answer this better than anybody. But if the barricades are already planning to go out and fire is already planning to see if it's going to work for them, that seems like a pretty good chance to know whether it's going to work in the layout that's proposed. And if it is, at least the businesses will see where the barricades will be. So when the meetings start to happen with the stakeholders between the city and the chamber and the DCBA, and there's a place to start the discussion so they know what the picture looks like.
Okay, so Todd, thank you, Ken. Do we have any more speakers?
Mayor, question for Ken before he leaves. He's there.
Okay.
Yep.
You're still there, Ken?
I am.
So I know you can't speak for everybody, and you may have met even only with chamber people, but just your idea of delaying this, I understand it. Is that something that's reasonable to most of the businesses that might have been, even some are looking forward to this, some are you know, a little, leery. Some are probably against it, but is that a reasonable thing to do for most of these businesses, to give them time to plan? Are they happy with that idea? I have to, because a lot more speakers.
So the people that are happy, in my judgment, the people that are happy with this want it to happen right away. But I've also learned early in my career that people support what they help to create. And so getting input from those that are not most in favor of this right now, so they understand what it is, may go a long way in making this a lot more successful than rushing into something that is just going to cause pain and stress for businesses that are already feeling it.
Okay, thank you.
So Todd, can we put the barricades out on Thursday, because you have the street signage already, not fill them with water, let the truck go through, and then people can see what we're looking at, and then move the barricades into like one of the first parking spaces by each intersection? How is that a lot of work?
Yes, it is. It is big, because I don't know that we want to leave the barricades out in the parking spaces for that long. I would suggest, I mean, if that's the implementation that we'd like to do, we might want to put those a little closer together. I'd be concerned that we're going to open and close Campbell Avenue too many times. You know, we've already got arrow boards that say it's going to close on Thursday. And we've already got no parking signs up that say that's going to go away on Thursday. If we're, and those can all be modified. That's really not that labor intensive. But then if we're not going to do that, we're going to go out and have to kind of re-sign and re-advance sign everything in advance. And that's all doable. And I suppose leaving the barricades in the downtown area would help. But we're effectively going to have to manage two closure processes and then one breakdown in between. It might be, you know, if we wanted to be a little more efficient with the staff time and the resources, you know, we might suggest I had earlier said, if we don't do it this Thursday, maybe we should do it next Thursday, you know, and then I heard you repeat back maybe that you suggested Tuesday. So, you know, I wonder if Tuesday might be a good day for us to do that and do the trial run. And if it works, then we leave it in place, and the businesses would have until the following weekend to set things up. I should also add that I don't have a time certain commitment from fire yet on what time they would come out. I mean, we had talked about them coming out on Thursday. We've been going back and forth with them several times today on updating the layout at one of the intersections. And so it's quite possible that they would be able to make it Thursday, or I mean, I guess I just don't know 100% for sure what day they'd be able to do this. So we were planning on Thursday, but they had not 100% made a commitment to that at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to go back through all the council, but here's my thought. People are going to be submitting an encroachment permit, and they're not going to have a visual in their mind of where the closures are, and if they won't be able to walk it and see it. So I understand that if there's a set up, take down, set back up mode, but is there a way, because the big thing for this early phase is to get the fire department to move their truck through there to see that the barricade locations work. Is there something that we could do on Thursday, whether it includes closing the side streets, that you could put up cones or paint a line and that the truck could move through there, and that way, while it's closed, the businesses could go out and start to see where the space we're talking about, and parking and that kind of stuff?
Yes, I believe we could do that. I mentioned earlier that the space might not be what everybody was hoping for. So if you recall the map that Michael just had up there,
Let's put it back up, Michael.
And by and large, you have a street width there that's 40 feet, right? Yep. And County Fire for the blocks between Railway and Second is asking for a 20-foot fire lane.
Right.
So a 20-foot fire lane essentially means that, you know, if we're going to have businesses on both sides of the street that want to take advantage of this, they effectively get to move out about 10 feet off the face of the curb. And I think we could easily go do some paint markings or cones or something. But I will tell you that's not much more than the adjacent on-street parking stalls. The on-street parking stalls are about 8 feet. So in effect, you're only getting a couple more feet than that to work with. I should also add that for the block between Second and Third, they're asking for 26 feet, not just 20. And so in those areas, you actually only end up with about 7 feet per side, which is just about, you know, the inside of the parking tees on the street. The other dynamic that we face here is that we've got bulb outs on many of these corners. And on the bulb outs, we would really be hard pressed to allow any business to move into the street where there's a bulb out, because the width of the bulb outs is about 2 traffic lanes. So we're looking at a width of about 24 feet there. And when with County Fire asking for 20, there's really not much space there. So I think it's reasonable for us to go out and put some marks on the street to show where about 10 feet is. But if we're going to go with this sort of closure, that's really what we're looking at in terms of having dedicated space to each adjacent business. Now, that doesn't mean that over the course of the day, you know, tables and chairs won't move, but in the event that an emergency vehicle needs to access the site, that's the kind of room that they're looking for.
Can the 20 feet have some tables that if the truck needs to show up, it's move them out of the way real quick?
Would you like my answer or County Fire's answer?
Yours and or them, both.
I think, you know, in conversations, I mean, we understand that things that are portable are subject to move periodically. And I think, you know, depending on the size of the party that the restaurant is serving, I think there's a lot of understanding here that portable chairs and tables will move. I think County Fire is understanding of that. I think where there will be a little more reluctance is that if there's going to be shade structures or tents used, they're not going to want to see that in the quote unquote fire lane. So I think anything that is not something that can be easily pushed out of the way is not going to be received well.
Madam Mayor, if I could dovetail off of what Director Capurso just mentioned. So the draft guidelines that Michael and I are preparing capture exactly that point, that if these businesses want to install a tent, those tent structures need to be within the established parking stalls, leaving the travel lanes not so much open, but not obstructed by big structures that can't be easily moved. So we would allow tables and chairs, but they would have to be at such a weight limit that they're not overly heavy, and then they can be moved in case of emergency.
And in your policy, are you still requiring them to have a designated frame or something that designates their area, like a stanchions or planter boxes?
It could be tape on the ground. I mean, we can certainly provide some delineating marks requirements for each business.
But we do want those, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Michael, thanks for the map.
Sure.
Unless anybody else wants to see it, let's put it back down.
I'll just make a point of clarification on the map. The restricted signs that Ken Johnson asked about, that doesn't indicate no parking. It just means it's indicated to mean no turns, no turns.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so let's tackle the first question. Oh, Liz.
Can I ask a clarification? Was there any discussion of making Campbell Ave one-way for the fire department?
Not specifically. I did inquire about ways to reduce the traffic lane, but they were pretty insistent because they would not be able to guarantee which direction the response was coming from. Although we are far closer to the fire station on Duncanville, if that firehouse were out on a call or if needed assistance from the Sunny Oak site, they didn't seem to be willing to want to narrow what their requirements were.
And also, Liz, one truck potentially needs to pass the other truck, and when a truck's set up and the hoses are spewed out and whatever, then there needs the width beyond the truck. So that's why it's 20 feet wide. That's like a minimum. Okay, so let's tackle the first question. Do we want to have I'll ask this, do we want to have a trial run this Thursday, set them up because we've already posted the street, but then take them out or move them into a parking space, open the street back up, and then do something next week? So, Rich, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think we've been through this one a few times. I guess I'm not sure what we've said before. We're going to run it for a month and staff will keep their eye on it. And they said every 2 weeks, but maybe we sort of modify that, saying the goal is to do it for a month, which will settle some of the issues that Todd and his group have. And then they need to keep watching it. So if we find after, as staff finds, not the council, after a few days that it's just not working, or there's too much confusion, or there's too much anger, or all the things I think that were listed in the packet are not working well, they can either change it or just say, look, it's not working. I don't want to start out saying it's probably not going to work, so let's give 1 day. Why don't we start out saying, let's give a month trial. We're going to figure out a lot of these things, like all these discussions we're having about, where is brown chicken going to go or something. And that can happen during the month. But if we find out it's just not working, and I trust Ken Johnson a lot and DC BA and those kind of the groups to come back. And if they're unanimously saying things aren't going to work out, we stop it. But I don't want to start out saying, let's try it with the idea that it may not work. I think we're sort of setting ourselves up for failure. I'd like, let's do it if things don't go with that.
That wasn't what I asked. What I had asked was, because we don't have encroachment permits, because people don't know where they can go, the thought for this Thursday, 2 days from now, was because the street's been posted, that we close, whether it be with stanchions, sandwich boards, but that we allow the fire truck to get through, because then that's going to determine how much space is left. It also allows the businesses to step outside and see what they potentially could have. And then that happens Thursday. And my concern, if we keep it closed that weekend, that people are going to haphazardly be moving stuff out and we won't have any control over it. So do you support a 1 day setup and then reopen, close for a month next week?
Close for a month? What'd you say?
We're going to close for a month, but do we close the month starting this Thursday, or do we close the month starting next week?
Again, same answer. I think it doesn't change what I was saying. I would rather let's go with the idea it's going to work. Start it, let's say Tuesday, to get all the kinks out. If staff wants to do a little trial there, that's their call, but start it on Tuesday and with the idea that it'll work. If things don't work, try to change it. If you can't change it, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board.
Okay. Thanks, Rich. Paul, or no, Ann, I'm sorry, Ann, you're in line next.
So I agree with Ken Johnson's comments about the public information and making sure that we reach out to the businesses and let them have a comfort level with what's happening. I myself am more of a visual person, so you can tell me all these where you're going to put these things, but unless I actually see it, it helps me understand better. So I would support doing it on Thursday, since that we've already noticed it. Set up the the plan, have fire tested out, have the businesses get involved in it, invite them in or invite them down to look at it and explain how things are going to work. Maybe work out whatever kinks need to be implemented, and then maybe start it on the following Tuesday. It will give the businesses a chance to get their encroachment permits. Hopefully that can be expedited. I don't want to speak for the public works staff, but if that would give them enough time, and then start it on Tuesday.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, so I think certainly starting it before next week makes no sense, because we could close it and not have a business ready to do anything there and just basically block their street. So it makes no sense to have anything there permanently. I mean, I like the idea of being able to visualize it. What bothers me about this is I'd like to hear from Director Caperso again. It sounded like this is not a small task to put it there, move it, store it, and all this stuff. So logistically, is that really doable? Or is there another way in advance by meeting with the businesses down there to explain what we're trying to do here and show them without having these large barriers there? So let me throw that back to Director Caperso if I can. That's the part that bothers me. I didn't hear that was a great option for the city to pull off. But I certainly think that starting before next week will hurt more than help. The businesses just aren't ready.
Todd?
Well, it will be, it's going to be labor intensive. It's going to basically take the entire streets crew and probably part of half of the parks crew to implement this. There's, we've got like 25 of these barricades that all need to be transported over and taken off a flatbed into different locations. It's going to be a significant piece of work. Now we understand that, and it needs to get done. So we're trying to be efficient with our time, which is a good thing, but we also need to be sensitive to what will help the business community. So, I guess I'm trying to balance between, I'd like to somehow find a way to let the business community understand what's being proposed, so that they can, help better plan for that. But I don't necessarily know that the placement of a barricade at the end of a block is going to change the plan for a business at mid-block who knows that they get to use the 10 feet directly in front of the curb. So, that's my perspective on that. I'm also a little sensitive to leaving these unfilled barricades in the downtown area for, over a weekend, which might present some risk. And again, it might not. But I'd be a little, I suppose I'd be a little less concerned if we put it up as a trial on a Tuesday and kind of left it in place, and then restaurants could then implement at the end of the week. If council would like us to do it on Thursday and then move everything out of the way, that's something that we can do. But it's effectively going to require an extra round of takedown and an extra round of setup.
So if I follow up, please. If you did this next Tuesday, the idea would be to put it there, have fire come by, bless it, then you're going to fill them with water, and then they're permanent. They're 1,000 pounds or something sitting there. They're not. That
would be the plan, correct?
So okay, so you just raised a really good point. We're trying to visually show them what's happening, but the visual of your end of it is blocking the street. It has nothing to do with what it's going to look like in front of their location.
Unless you're a business located very close to a corner.
Understood, but we can have some hand holding to those.
Right.
To try to, I don't care if you tape it off or something to show them what's what, but for a mid-street retailer or anybody not on the corner, they're concerned, like you said, I go out 10 feet, I can have a pop-up, I can't. They need to know, I think what they need to know comes from community development, it comes from economic development, and what you're talking about doesn't help them. So given what you said, I would support you doing that Tuesday. I can't see starting and closing it before then. So if you can get fire that same day so it can be done then permanently, I would support that.
Okay, Liz?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of general comments. In terms of the resolution, I am answering your question. In terms of the resolution, I think we might want to add from 4th to 3rd and from down to railway, just because you may end up having to switch things around enough that you want some flexibility. So if the resolution gives you the option to close some street sections down, that might be helpful. And this is coming back to that. I am not sure that I understood what you said earlier about public parking. I'm thinking of the public.
Well, hang on, Liz. The first question is.
I am trying to answer that question.
Okay.
I am. The public parking in front of Abellagio and the Water Tower Kitchen. Has that already been in the previous motions?
Bellagio secured their space through an encroachment permit back in June.
Okay, thanks. And then your drawing is the private parking lot between Central and First accessible?
Between what? I didn't hear you.
Between Central and First.
The private parking lot.
Where next to Blue Line Pizza?
No, next to the Orchard Coffee.
It would not, that's the Xavier Sanchez lot. It would not be accessible.
Okay, and have we gotten information from the owner on that?
So can we stick, Liz, I'm trying to get.
I appreciate that, but my answer is if there's a lot of outstanding issues, I have a different answer. I mean.
Yes, there's a lot of outstanding issues, yes.
And hearing tonight makes me wonder if this is the right thing to do. I appreciate council members saying, try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't disagree with that, but there's an awful lot of stepping up that makes me second guess what we're doing, particularly since we are trying to come up with a balanced solution for the retail and the restaurant. So I'm a little uncomfortable.
Madam Vice Mayor, I did speak with the property owner of the.
I think that setting it up on Tuesday is, but I do think we've got a lot of challenges. So setting it up on Tuesday may just with a whole lot of problems that we can't solve. And I would like to know a little bit better about how we're going to provide a balanced solution for the retail and their parking.
Okay, let's
piecemealing the discussion.
Right, but right now the first question is, do we do it Thursday or do we start Tuesday? And then we can get into all the issues of what we don't know and what, because I'm just trying to move this along.
Right.
So do you want to open Thursday or do you want to wait till
Thursday? Makes no sense.
Okay, Paul has his hand up.
Just one quick thing. I still believe Thursday's too soon, but as part of this communication that happens sooner, is there any reason we can't have graphics made up, visuals that put everybody and say, look, this is what we're talking about. This is what the street's going to look like. Every project we get to vote on has very nice graphics and says, here's the image on it. We can do that and say, this is what your corner is going to look like. This is where 10 feet is. This is what it means to you, retail, restaurant, whatever. And that takes care of showing them in person on Thursday. But show them on paper on Thursday if we can move fast enough. I think that would be very easy to give them the graphic that Councilmember Bivey's right. Some people like the graphics. It can be on paper without moving big barriers out there.
Okay, Bill, I have a question for you. Are you there? I would like Ken Johnson to at least answer if people are going to be disappointed if we don't start Thursday. Do I open the public meeting again to be able to ask him?
Yes, that would be
okay.
The process.
So I'm going to take a second to open the public meeting because it sounds like nobody really wants to start this Thursday. And I don't want who's already been told we may close to be very disappointed. So the public meeting is back open. And Ken, are you there?
I am still here. I'm still here.
Can you answer the question that I asked of how disappointed will people be that they don't get to move out on Thursday? I mean, based on all the confusion we're having, it seems like it's better to wait.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to speak for the people that'll be disappointed for not closing on Thursday. I can certainly speak for the people who will be extremely disappointed if it closes, if the streets close and there's no plan in place for what they can do and where parking is going to be and what it's going to look like. And quite honestly, hearing the information about the 10 feet and that sort of thing, there may be restaurants who say it's not worth an investment for me to do that. So this whole issue, given the situation with fire, it's worth talking to the businesses. I would not, again, businesses need whatever they can, and I know you're all doing the best you can to help them. But my judgment is opening this up without a clear plan and buy-in from the businesses, you're not helping anybody, really.
Okay, Ray, I'm glad to hear from you. Because I opened the public hearing, I don't know if I have to ask Jeanette if she's still there, if she wants a comment, or if there's anybody else now that wants to. Andrea?
I don't have my only comment would be in agreement with Ken that I think from a business owner perspective, having a solid plan in place is pretty important, but that's about it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to close the public hearing, and then Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting this conundrum that we've had from the beginning, and I mean, it really gets down to, do we, dot I's, cross T's, do it right, and sometime, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, I suspect in perhaps Q1 or Q2, 2021, we'll get all the things, gets the most input we can, or we do this thing saying we only have enough certain time to get this moving, and things are going to change, at some point, pandemic, and when they let the restaurants open, things will change. So the question is, do we rush with the idea that we won't have everything perfect and let it go? Or do we say, let's do it right and wait till next year sometime to get it going? And I know people are going to say, well, maybe there's a middle ground. I'm not sure there's a middle ground. If we're going to do it right, let's do it right. Let's wait. I'm not in favor of that. I think we have to take a certain amount of, it's not really risk. If things aren't right, according to staff, we will turn it back to where it was again. We will say it's not working, and Ken will be a part of this process, and DCBA. I know there are certain council members who are very uncomfortable with this approach. They don't like let's see what happens, and if it's not good, we will change it. And that's going to be, I'm sure, the split with the council, but that's what we're looking at. Do we wait a few months? Probably it'll be more than a few months and get it right, or do we do it now? And we have to make a decision. Waiting another week is not going to make this easier. Waiting another month is not going to make this easier.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may jump in just for a point of clarification. I know Todd has referenced the 10 feet from the fire department. Our guidelines that we're developing allow businesses to go to the center line with their outdoor furniture, provided it's the lightweight type of furniture of tables and chairs and umbrellas that are lightweight, mobile, and easy to move in emergency situations. So
I do not support going to the center line of the street. The sidewalks are already way too crowded, and we're going to need the center of the street for walking and getting people out of the way off the sidewalk. So I would not support that far out. So I see a raise of the hands of how many people want to start next Tuesday? Is that Paul? Do you have your hand up? Yep, Liz. Okay, so we all have our hand up. So you're off the hook for Thursday, Todd. Okay. And Rich, to your point, we are not waiting a month. We are not waiting 3 months. We are not waiting a year. It's not, you make the statement, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I don't want perfection to get in the way. I have said numerous times, this is a trial. We're going to make mistakes. Us as a community needs to buy into this as a trial, and we're going to learn along the way. So we've said that before. So right now it looks like Tuesday, and I picked Tuesday, Todd, because it gives you 4 days before the weekend to have everybody get ready. So now that's great. We got somewhere. Now let's get into a little bit more about all the issues that we've just discussed. So I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit. We need a clear plan. The map Michael has is a great start. I blow it up bigger and show better, maybe extend the property lines of each business out into the street and put them out to 10 feet so that a business can look on the map and see that. There needs to be very good guidelines because people are going to what's called scope creep. They're going to move their tables out farther and farther and farther. So we should have some way, whether you paint a line or put tape down, or they have to put something to designate their spot. So then the other one is, do we let people on the side streets, Second, Central, First and Second, have part of the part on the closed street? I'm sorry, let's see here. And then if there's like the one public speaker who talked about past the downtown, but I think she's in a place where she could take over parking spaces, if I heard where she is correctly. So I don't think we're closing the street over there, but she could go with our previous order of the parking spaces.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I just took a look at that resolution that you adopted, curtailing code enforcement activities. We passed 2 resolutions, if you recall, one for the downtown proper and one for areas outside of the downtown. And the resolution specifically talked about dining and retail.
Okay.
Now, we can, in the city attorney and I were just communicating, I think we can easily enough alter that resolution to include these personal service training type of activities, if you wish.
I would suggest that, because we don't want to put everything into downtown. I think we want to accommodate as many businesses as possible. And not just, maybe make some statement. I think you said earlier, Paul or Brian, that it would be any permitted use that's already there could submit a permit or submit to have them take over parking spaces, because the county order may change next week again. So I would like to leave it as a broader topic of permitted uses, allowable uses, whatever, Paul, you want to come up with. But I do think we need to amend the previous resolution.
So we would need 3 affirmative votes from the council when you get to the point of structuring your motion.
Okay.
On that. All right,
okay. So now, other than the things that I just brought up about the map, about clear direction, about where their property is, how we're going to deal with the parking lot. So Liz, did you have any other broader topics to add to that? And then we'll tackle each one.
My comment has been pretty consistent. We need to make sure that we balance the needs of all our businesses, the retail and the restaurant. And I'd like to see something in the motion that supports the retail as well as the restaurants, because retail has a much higher drive-by relationship for their business success and close parking, rather than restaurants being more of a destination. So I think we need to be sure that we provide that opportunity. I think someone else asked that there should be some kind of support from the DCBA and the chamber members that as this goes forward, it's working. We got information from DCBA on a survey of how businesses are thinking about whether this is a good idea or not. And there's good information in there. It's fair to say that the retail were the most concerned. So we haven't identified and how we're going to measure the success of this. And I'd like to come back and add that to your topic of discussion.
The success of this?
Yeah, yes, we're doing a two-week measure of success, right?
Yeah, I'm just taking notes as you're speaking.
So I'm asking, how are we going to do that?
Yep.
So I think we have an example of how we might. I am concerned about the private lot not being accessible. And also the ABC guidelines require barriers, and we want to make sure that we don't mislead our restaurant, that they may need something more from the ABC as opposed to just Campbell and our own encroachment permit.
Okay, is that everything?
It's enough for now.
Okay, so I think we all can agree that there needs to be very clear guidelines. We can all shake our head, yes. We all want clear guidelines. I think we all are saying we want a map, and my suggestions of show where the expansion they have, the 10 feet, whatever, 8 feet, show extend the property lines or the storefront line if it's multiple businesses out to that 10 feet. Show that there would be a sidewalk, maybe put a strip along there that you have to, that your business is going to have the street, the sidewalk of your building side, you're going to have a sidewalk of public right of way, and then you're going to have other expansion areas. So it's clear they're not contiguous. Do we all, is that, Liz is saying no, and a map. Basically, we're talking about a map at this point, Liz. So I think
What I'm very cautious about, and I just said, we have to be careful that our map doesn't imply approval by the ABC. ABC has very special regulations, and as well as the county for separation distances. So I think we have to be careful about what our guidelines say and what our permit process implies.
okay, so somewhere in big bold print at the top of the map or the guidelines, ABC, you know, say something about must follow ABC guidelines. And I think you actually have to get approval for your location for any alcohol sales, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
For a temporarily expanded outdoor area, there's a temporary permit for existing licensees.
Okay.
And that's in
then,
our guidelines that were
okay,
developed.
so do you want to tackle side streets or parking first? Parking? Let's start with parking. So Rich or Ann or Paul, do you guys have comments? I know Liz has some about your thoughts on parking. Do we want to, here's the first question. Do we want to keep the parking lot up by Blue Line open? It makes a little bit of a confusion on how to pull into that parking lot and out. Ann?
Yes, I think we need to keep it open.
Rich?
I agree.
Yes. Paul? Blue Line parking lot?
Oh, I'm sorry, leave it open.
Okay, Liz,
Yeah,
you're okay?
leave it open. Yeah.
I think we should block off the alley though, because brown chicken, brown cow, and they could have now out into the alleyway. And I know it gets really tight back in there if all those cars try to go out that way. So that's something you might want to look at.
Get people to turn around is tough.
Well, Bill?
You may want to check with Todd. I don't think we own that alley.
You don't.
No, I've heard that story before, but can't you mark it to not go out that way? We'll look into that. I don't want to get too focused. We all agree to keep the Blue Line pizza parking lot, city lot open.
We will
Okay,
start
how
with
about
that.
how about at the other end where you show it doesn't quite go to 3rd Street and it shows getting into the parking lot? Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah, quick question. I mean, on the parking lot, I think Bill's right, we don't own it. There are other businesses there too that have parking spaces there, so we should check with them. But I have a question. We've heard a lot from fire. When we're talking about that alley, for example, which is a pass-through, I'd like, if possible, I think we have Captain Livingston on here. Does PD have any concerns with that kind of pass-through, that they want it or don't want it? I think I'd like to hear from PD if they have concerns on that or anything really. You're here, so maybe you could speak up to that.
Okay, I think Dan is on. I didn't see if
I see
Gary,
him.
who wants to take it, Gary or Dan?
Yeah, I think the concern with the alleyway is that parking lot is tough to turn around in. I think it would be good to have the access to go through. As far as the other discussions, I was involved with Paul and Todd. We gave our input during those discussions.
Okay. So if there's anything that PD needed as far as throughways or something like that, Todd and Paul already have that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to check. I hadn't heard from you, so.
Okay. All right, so how about at the other end, cutting the block short and having the ability to get into the lot at 3rd Street off of Campbell Avenue? I think that we need to do that. And
I'm sorry,
the other end of the street down by where 3rd Street is,
Yeah,
there's the one lot that's served from Campbell Avenue.
well, that's a private access and they should be entitled to have access to their property.
Okay, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting into a little bit of minutia here. It seems like staff can deal with what happens at 3rd Street and 2nd Street and a lot here and a lot there. I mean, let's stick with the policy level of what we're looking for so they can take that and be able to make changes. If it looks like this lot's not working and that lot's not working, we need to empower them to make some decisions. So I don't really want to go through every single street and say.
No, that's the 2 big ones. Okay, so Brian or Paul or Michael, I have a question about the private lot that Liz brought up. Can we just deny them access to that and maybe give them spaces somewhere like in the museum parking lot? Bill, maybe that's a Bill question.
Let me see if I can take a stab at answering this in a public forum. Essentially, they have certain rights to access to their lot there, and we would have to work with the property owner to work something out with him.
Okay, so it is doable because I know we have to give them access. So there is a conversation that needs to happen on that one.
Yeah, I did speak with the property owner and he expressed concerns about street closure affecting access to the lot and his tenant being able to generate revenue.
Okay, and so you're looking at, I think Brian mentioned to me, there were potential options of giving him spaces somewhere else to offset the loss of income. Okay, so we don't get too much in it, but Liz brought this up, so let's not forget that one. Okay, still on parking side streets. There's been a discussion of whether we have the whole side street for pickup or if we have a half of the street for retail parking and the other half for pickup. Liz?
So I think this is one of those details that I mentioned earlier about having the DCBA and the chamber businesses tell us what they want. This is not our expertise. We know we need drop off, we know we need Uber, but we don't know how much we need. There may be hours that make sense for deliveries. I think that's a level of detail that needs to be clearly answered, but not by us. I think the merchants need to tell us what they need.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Just leave it up to them to decide, right? Paul?
I'm certainly in favor of it if it helps them. This is one of those areas where we need to communicate with everybody. The real issue is we probably can't enforce it if we put up some signs of who parks where, but we certainly, if it makes sense to have takeout areas and or retail pickup areas specifically, I think between DCBA and the chamber, perhaps get that message out to people. Hey, support our businesses. Please honor our parking restrictions or whatever, and make it, it's going to have to be voluntary, right? But I think it can help, but let's get their input.
Okay, Ann or Rich, we're going to direct that back to the chamber and the DCBA and staff. Rich says yes, Ann?
I agree with that.
Liz?
I'm just not sure it's voluntary. I'm just saying, I'm not sure that we have to assume that. Because we do.
What do you mean voluntary?
We do have enforcement, so.
What I meant is, so my point was, it adds a burden on PD, but even more so, if we're successful in bringing people downtown and somebody wants to eat and parks for an hour in a spot that we say 15-minute takeout, do we benefit by starting to ticket people downtown? I went downtown to eat and I got a ticket. It's going to be, I parked in the wrong spot. It never is. They're not conducive to liking business and blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's going to benefit us to have PD spending time ticketing cars if they're in fact coming down to do business. So I think we can ask people the best we can to do the right thing.
But we do have an officer that is responsible for traffic control in the downtown. But I'd like to Susan, I don't know, or Mayor Landry, are you going to go to additional parking discussion, or do you want me to put it in here?
Well, right now we're focused on the side streets of whether we do drop pickup and then retail. So the consensus seems to be we send that back to the staff to work with Chamber and DCBA. And then my concern is if we do have retail, how do you make sure it stays retail? Because if I'm the restaurant person, I'm going to park there. And I had suggested whether the business that they're going to can pre-print a sign to put on their dashboard, whatever, that needs to be resolved. How, if you do retail spaces, how are you going to enforce it? I think the drop off and pickup, it's easy. You put a 10-minute time limit on it. So that's back to staff. So let's go into other parking issues.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I have something in my eye. Okay, so let's go back through. Rich, do you have any other thoughts on parking issues? No, Anne? I can't tell, you shaking your head.
No. I mean, I think we have to realize that this is really a fluid situation and it's going to change, and it could change day to day. So we have to be flexible. If the amount of spaces we have for, restaurant pickup, curbside pickup isn't enough, we'll have to maybe adjust that. But again, it's a pilot program, and I don't know that we can second guess everything and try and make arrangements for every detail, because it is a fluid situation.
Okay, Paul, your thoughts, and then we'll move on.
I agree. If we run into the problem of not having enough parking, we did well, and we'll address it. That's a good point.
Liz?
So we've had feedback from the retail businesses that they're very worried about losing their parking. They're compromising and losing their drive-by traffic, and they're compromising and their parking in front. So I'm asking for a balance, and I think we should consider in the conversation that something like the museum parking lot be signed for retail only, or something else. We need to allow the retail to come back to us with requests for additional parking and additional signage. I don't want to limit the conversation just to the side streets, because they're losing all the frontage that's important to them. So somehow we have to, I'm going to say compensate, because the restaurants have the vast benefit. Most of the retail have said they will not move out into the street because they'd have to hire staff, which they can't currently afford. They also don't want to leave their merchandise out where people can touch it, which wouldn't be appropriate right now. So I think we just need to be open-minded to whatever the community comes back with. And I'm supportive of a range of solutions to provide appropriate parking for retail as well as the restaurants.
Okay, and I would agree with you on the balance. Early in the conversation, I made a comment about the loop streets. And there is that second choice on the resolution, that it's just not for businesses on Campbell Avenue, that it's all businesses in the loop street, within the loop. And then that opens up, okay, but where do those extra businesses get to have public frontage on Campbell? So do we want to have it expand out to any business out to the loop, or just leave it the facing of Campbell Avenue and maybe the alley or something? Rich, your thoughts?
I mean, this is one we're going to have to put this, and then what the vice mayor was just commenting on. This term non-restaurant retail is extremely diverse and broad. We have a rather construction company there. And we have a printing place. We have, and they're all going to have, we have, somebody said there's a barber shop. So what everyone's going to want, in a barber shop, you probably don't, it doesn't bother you to park in the Second Street lot. If you just want to pick up something, that's a different type of retail. So it's a diverse group with a lot of different demands. And I think we have to see how many of these there are. Because I don't think there's that many of these sort of stores, let's call them, where people, don't want to park in the second street or the first street lot, and they don't want to walk a little bit. They want to just drive by and pick things up. I'd be more interested as time goes on to know, understand, you know, people are, what their requirements really are before we're just saying, okay, this boutique retail gets a spot or gets 2 spots. Maybe they need 10 spots. I don't know. It depends on what. And like I said, there's a lot of non-restaurant retail all over the place there. So it's another one of those things I think we just gotta adapt to and try to get some better metrics on who really needs what and what time. I mean, in the middle of the day, people can park. It's not an issue. I've been there, which is a huge amount of time, and parking on Loop Street or parking on Second Street or First Street is not a big deal. And late at night, the later, you know, as the restaurants start to get busy, the most of the, again, I use the term boutique shops are not open that I've seen. They closed earlier. So I'd like some more numbers to see, are we talking about 1 or 2, or are we talking about a dozen or so of these stores? Thank you.
Okay, Anne, so the question goes back to, do we limit this to the businesses that front onto Campbell Avenue and or the side streets, or do we go all the way out to anybody that's within the loop? Because that's going to dictate who gets real estate on Campbell Avenue. What are your thoughts, Anne?
Well, really, without knowing who needs what, it's really difficult to make a decision. So I think, again, we need to kind of have a wait and see approach and adjust as we need to.
Okay. Paul?
I don't think we know yet. I mean, if everybody on Campbell Avenue wants to take a space out there and take it up, then there's no space for someone that's not on the street. I want to help everybody. If we have the available space, I have no problem bringing them in. But then we get to the complexity of they have to go and get permission in front of another business that frankly also may, the next door neighbor to that business may be vying on Campbell. I would satisfy those on the street first. Let's see what that requirement is. The other thing I'm not, I mean, until we know how far out they want to go and can go, we don't know what space is available, right? And I guess one thing I want to clarify if I could, because it relates to the amount of space available. I think it was Director Caperso said the fire department saying 10 feet and 10 feet, leave that middle. Is that very firm? Because we also heard the question later on about reaching the center line. As to which is a mandatory requirement. If there is the 10 feet a mandatory requirement. Let me ask you that.
I think you're talking about the 20 feet.
Yeah. What is the requirement? I'm sorry.
10 and 10.
No, well, the discussion was, I thought those parking spaces were 10 wide. Todd said they were 8 wide, but the fire department wants 20 feet clear. Some tables can go into that, but I don't think everybody should go into the center line because we're going to run out of places for people to walk. So Todd, maybe you can.
Well, what fire, it's exactly as you've described, Mayor Landry, that what fire is asking for on the blocks between Railway and Second is a 20-foot fire lane. And when you look at the 40-foot wide street, that is, if you assume that we're going to take the fire lane down the middle, it would be 10 feet on either side. Okay. And that's what the request is. It's even less than that between Second and Third, as they're requesting a 26-foot fire lane. I should also tell you, you know, and again, we understand that there's not going to be a perfect solution here, but the businesses that front onto a bulb out, there may be that may be challenging to get them space because they may not have all of the frontage available to them that's immediately in front of their business. Okay. Because we can't essentially let them use space in the bulb out because almost the entire width between bulb outs will be required for fire lane.
Okay, so my confusion was in talking about not wanting to block the center line. It may not even be possible to block the center, to be up to the center line.
Would not be.
Yeah. The other thing, just to add to this question, is because we have that problem with the bulb outs, I'd like to see who wants to do what and where it is, because the people with the bulb outs may need some additional space next to them, that before we ultimately say, hey, somebody on Old Orchard can take it, or somebody on, wherever can take it. Let's see if they're on the street and can't utilize the space in front of their own place because of a bulb out, maybe they need to take it first. So I'd like to see what's happening on the Campbell Avenue people first. And then if we have available capacity, absolutely open it up.
Okay, Liz, you're on that same line of thinking?
Yes.
Okay. So I got a question I had thought about earlier. Is there a way, and I know grade change and curbs and ramps, is there a way to allow them to take over the whole sidewalk and push the public's path of travel out into the street, and maybe have a couple ramps up to their little businesses? Because it seems like there would be, you wouldn't have the gap in between, because Liz has brought up before, your tables may be 6 feet apart, but everybody's walking between you while you're sitting there without your mask on eating. So is there a way we can do this on the sidewalks?
I believe there is. I think it'll have some challenges, because what we need to effectively do is designate the pedestrian path of travel. And we've seen some renderings on how this can be done, but almost right down the center of the street, because that's about the only place on the street where you have a cross slope that is somewhat compliant with ADA. You certainly couldn't do that just outside of the curb. But once again, I think the challenging part will be in that, we need to somehow change the expectation of the pedestrians in the downtown area, that now their path of travel is in the middle of the street and is not on the sidewalk. So if you have gaps where along a block where maybe that's not being done consistently across the block, will you be able to change the behavior of the pedestrian? So, I think, as has been said several times tonight, there's quite a few things that we don't know. We really don't know how many businesses are going to be interested in this, given our if I can call them limitations of the space available. I think one thing that we really need to get a gauge on is that if we do this and implement, how many people are really going to utilize this opportunity? Because if it's not very many, and forgive me for saying this so late in the game, but if it's not very many, maybe we need to look at a different option at some point.
I like to jump in if I possibly can. Moving the current guidelines, the current resolution requires 5-foot clearance on the sidewalk. And there's a relationship between the pedestrian access and being able to go into a building that has an ADA accessible bathroom. If you move the accessibility to the street, I think we're going to be violating all kinds of state codes. I just want to throw that out there. And in terms of the fire department, I had a discussion with Chief Linney, and they just wanted to comment on this. They want to be part of the conversation. Now, they need a clearance down the road, down Campbell Avenue, but that clearance, what they're really talking about is they don't want to see substantial structures like tents that are weighted down with big sand weights that can't be moved. I mean, if there's a fire and there's tables and chairs on Campbell Avenue, those can easily be moved, no different than people walking on Campbell Avenue would have to move out of the way. If the council doesn't want to allow tables and chairs to the center line of the road, I'm not even understanding why we need to close Campbell Avenue. Let's create parklets on each side that comprise of the 10-foot area or 8 feet area, and call it a day and let Campbell Avenue be free. In terms of the loop streets, that means we would have to close down. Right now, we're keeping in the east-west closed, that's Campbell Avenue, and the north-south open to allow some form of circulation in downtown. If you want to extend this to the loop streets, that means we're closing all the streets down.
No, Paul, that's not what I meant. I meant businesses that don't face onto Campbell Avenue within the loop.
Okay, so we
Well, I'm
do
not
have,
closing the loop streets.
so we
need
have a
the-
salon behind the bookstore. So that's on First Street. So would they be included? Right,
That was my question.
right. Well, see, we would have to close that north-south street down. That's going to the loop. That's going to Civic
No, there
Center.
would be, no, I don't think we close more streets. The idea would be if you're on the side street, the one beauty salon, do they get street frontage on Campbell Avenue? So it's just sounding like we
So it's
leave it.
moving them to Campbell Avenue. Okay, I feel more comfortable about that. So
Okay, so what's, Rich?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize again, and that's a perfect example of when restaurants get busy versus when a hair salon gets busy. I don't believe that intersects at all. And so I don't think they have a problem. An issue, obviously, now that the state doesn't allow, and certainly the county doesn't allow them to cut here and style inside salon. Now that may change soon, hopefully, but right now that's the rule. So they need some space if somewhere. And I don't see that as a problem. We should allow them to have the space if they need it on Campbell, or I suspect they want to do it in front of their own place for hygiene reasons, and they may have to because of law. They need to wash here and all, have access to power. So the hair salon is a good example of what I talked about before. That's a more complicated beast, I think, that it's not just taking space with a table. You need to have a proper chair and proper hygiene and proper whatever. I'm not a specialist, but I think that's complicated. The issue of parking for a hair salon to me is a non-issue. It's just, it doesn't, somebody doesn't come at 7 or 8 at night typically. I know there's exceptions to get their haircut. They tend to be busier.
Thank you. So I saw Todd stepped away for a minute. Anne?
So could I ask Paul Kamorian to expand a little bit on the parklet idea? Does that mean then that you would have parklets all the way down from, let's say, Blue Line to the end to 3rd Street with barriers, and then the two-way traffic would still remain open? Is that what?
that's correct. The barriers would be installed on the edge of where the parallel street parking is next to the curb. So those areas that would normally have a car parked would basically be protected areas for outdoor dining or outdoor display. And then the 2 travel lanes would be open and cars can still go back and forth. They're doing that in Morgan Hill. They're doing it on Castro Street and Mountain View. Los Gatos is doing it.
Lincoln Avenue has parklets. Los Gatos has them.
And would the same type of barrier be used that we just purchased? Is that the same?
Yeah, they could. If we're opposed to having them go to the side of the street, why close the street? It doesn't make sense.
But it also then still impacts parking in front of a retail business.
It would, yes, that's correct.
Liz?
In Los Gatos, I believe I'm correct. Last time I checked, the restaurants were choosing to do parklets. The retail businesses were not. They were keeping their parking spaces. So it's not a continuum, it's an in and out.
So Todd, I'm going to go back to putting the public access down the street. I would think a business would prefer to have the restaurant be contiguous, because you could pick up the sidewalk and maybe even add the street part. But I know you have to get up to each curb. Is there a way to, there's 3 restaurants, one has a ramp in the middle and you can get to the restrooms and the restaurant buildings and whatever. But it seems like the street closure is getting way more complicated. And if we're only giving each person 10 feet, again, is that all, if they thought they could go to the center, are they going to be good with 10 feet? And that's why I was saying, take over the sidewalk. What's your thoughts, Todd and Paul?
Well, I think if you're talking about the notion of installing ramps, I mean, that's something that could be done. It would come with a cost. You know, I don't know that we would necessarily want to give up the whole path of travel of the side. I mean, that's going to be a council call. I kind of want to hang on to that notion because I don't know if this is going to be, for lack of a better term, universally accepted and acted upon, or are we going to get one or two businesses on each block? And so that's why I think we should, work with the chamber and DCBA to go back to Paul Cremoyne's last point that if we're only really seriously contemplating about 10 feet, would they prefer a different implementation? Because if you go back to the map that Michael had up some time ago, that there are some blocks that there's not a lot of restaurants, and there's some that there's not a lot of retail, and the characteristic may change block to block, and it's possible that we might find a configuration somewhere along the line that maybe, hypothetically, that the businesses are only interested on one side of the street and nobody's interested on the other side of the street. So you can shift the 20-foot lane to the other side and give the businesses that are interested 20 feet instead of 10.
Yeah.
Now it's probably not going to fall off that cleanly, but I'm just wondering if we could somehow better gauge what the level of interest is.
The bulb outs won't let you do that, Todd.
Well, so let's do this. We can go round and round. I think you're hearing our comments of what you need to factor into the plan. And I don't want to commit to anybody yet that they can go out to the center line till you talk to fire about how many tables can be out there. But in the block up by Blue Line across the street, if there's all restaurants, there isn't going to be, that's way too many tables for fire to get out of the way. So I think you've heard our comments, and we want to leave it up to DCBA and Chamber to input with you guys on all these logistics that we're talking about. We want to make sure that those are in the conversation. Is that good with everybody? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I could just summarize then just a couple of things. So we're not going to close anything down this week. Our
Correct.
plan is to get something in place by about Tuesday or so of next week. But in the meantime, we will work with the chamber and DCBA and see if there's any modification. If we can get some real input on what might make it better, we're happy to do that. But in the interim, there's not going to be any closure this week. We're going to target that by early next week.
That was the consensus. Anne has her hand up.
So I just wanted to ask, what type of forum are you going to be engaging with the DCBA and the chamber? I don't know what's been happening up to this point. I think it's been written communication, but will you conduct a Zoom meeting so you get input from the individual businesses? And will you float the idea of the parklet versus the actual street closure as part of the discussion to gauge what the interest would be?
Yes, we can engage the DCBA and chamber by Zoom meeting, and then we can float the parklet idea as well and see what feedback we get on that.
Okay, I would want to call it a public meeting. There may be people that have a business that are not part of the chamber or may not be in DCBA. So I think you want to have a public open forum, and and maybe if you have addresses for everybody on the block or email, send out something, put flyers out so that, and I would think that either Friday or Monday would help get this moving along. Okay. So I think we've covered everything that we have as concerns, and that way now we can say, staff, go do your stuff. Liz, do you have any other? Paul has one, I think. Liz first.
There's a resolution in front of us, and are we going to take action on the resolution? And if so, I think there's a revised resolution, and I also have some comments. So my question is, do we need to take action on the resolution at this point?
Bill?
And the direct answer to that question is for the city to have legal authority to close the street, you need a resolution.
Okay, but we can do the alternative because the resolution in the agenda specifically states dining, where the revised resolution says businesses, I think it says permitted businesses or dining or
It
dining.
says- Yeah, the revised one says dining and retail. If you want to expand it beyond that, it would be fairly simple to do depending on what you want to include.
I would want to include any permitted business.
Okay, then
Because that the salons kick in then.
Okay, then all you would need to do in your motion is to indicate that every place in the resolution where it says dining and retail, you replace it with permitted business.
Okay, Liz, does that, Paul had a comment also.
You need to clarify what between the loop roads means. We want to clarify it to be Campbell.
Back to Campbell Avenue.
Yeah, the resolution says between Civic Center Drive and Orchard City Drive, the revised resolution.
So we could say on there, businesses along Campbell Avenue.
If you wanted to change that to businesses along Campbell Avenue, sure, certainly you could do that.
Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Did we, just as we've been at this so long, did we address the earlier issue from the public about salons and fitness places and all that? You know, the governor is now saying that we can, if you can authorize outside operations, which is what the question was. This is not exactly the issue we're talking about today, and maybe it needs to be separate, but that question came up, right? To help fitness place or in particular salons and barbershops. We can allow this to happen down Campbell, but I'm not sure they're allowed to operate outside unless we authorize that. Brian, is that the case? I mean, I think what I've read is there are enabling this to happen, but it's up to the jurisdictions to allow it, right? Do we have to proactively allow that? So if a barbershop downtown or a fitness place wanted to open and this downtown closure, can they really even do that unless we specifically note it?
Anne has her hand up. Is that part of the same question?
Well, I was going to just comment that I believe Community Development Director Kamorian spoke to that a little while ago and said that if we wanted to expand our previous action, the previous resolution, we would need to make an amendment to it.
So I agree with that. What I'm asking is I'm sorry, Ann, what I'm asking is it require, because that's something new, I think, that's coming down from the state, specifically for those industries that were open Monday and closed Wednesday, require us to do anything beyond saying, hey, we included in our resolution. We have to do something specifically to enable those businesses to operate outside the facility.
So what I heard Paul say is we would have to amend the enforcement resolution about that was the lowest priority. But then in today's motion, that's why I added, instead of specifically saying dining and retail, to say permitted uses downtown. And then there's the caveat of you still need to get, like ABC, you still need their permit, or if you need the health department on your salon.
So maybe I just misunderstood what I read. I'm agreeing with all of that. What I'm asking is, maybe Director Kamorian, do we need to do something differently for those authorizations that are the state is saying, yes, you can do, but I thought you had to do something specific to say, okay, you can operate.
Right, exactly. So we really need to focus on what we're doing with the downtown. Okay, so that's in one bucket.
Correct.
The other bucket are all those other businesses like what Jeanette, the first speaker, spoke about with her fitness. So those would be areas outside of downtown, the second bucket. You can include in your motion two things: addressing the downtown, as well as directing staff to bring back the other resolution that will now include those businesses outside the downtown to be able to, you know, have the activity outdoors. And then we can capture that.
So let me clarify, because maybe I'm misunderstanding, I think. So we have a barbershop on Campbell Avenue, downtown, middle of downtown.
That's downtown.
Bishop, I think it's still there, right downtown.
Right.
If we change this resolution today to all permitted businesses, can Bishop cut hair on the street in downtown.
As long as they meet whatever state health codes
Well,
there are, yes.
And that's what I'm asking because the way I read it, this was just in a paper, was under some lobbying from that industry, the governor said, yes, we're going to look at allowing jurisdictions to do that.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking. Does Campbell have to take an action to enable him to do that? It would be terrible to open up the street to him and say, oh, but you're not allowed to do that anyway. It may need to be a separate resolution. I'm saying let's not forget those industries.
Yeah.
We have to act, let them operate outside. I'd like to make sure we get that on our agenda.
Right. So the resolution for the downtown, as I understand it, as the city attorney had drafted the alternative, we would include all permitted businesses in the downtown. Now, in the guidelines, they still need to get an ABC license to their new permitted area.
Right.
They still need to ensure they get health approval for cutting hair. Those are things outside the city's control, but we would be allowing them to expand.
I could be wrong, and I thought that the city had to allow it within their jurisdiction as well. So that was my concern, that we think we're doing this and say, oh, but they still need something else from us.
Well, Paul said there's two buckets. So the first bucket is downtown, and the second one is coming back with the resolutions we previously passed that talked about the low level of enforcement, and that was what he would come back with. We won't
Okay.
vote on that today, but he will come back. And then at that point, we probably will have more info from the county about salons.
Okay, I just don't want to lose the fact that we need to help these salons and fitness places as quickly as we can.
Yes. Okay. So are we ready to try to make a motion? So it goes to the alternative resolution that instead of clearly stating it's only outdoor dining, that we would say permitted uses in downtown, right? That's all we need, a bill in the, but the other resolution talks is about the loop streets.
East Campbell Ave, not downtown. East Campbell
Right.
Ave.
So the adopted resolution on the agenda says adopt a resolution to facilitate expansion of outdoor dining areas. So I'm saying expansion of outdoor permitted businesses. That would be the change instead of saying just dining areas.
For clarification, East Campbell Avenue actually goes east of the railroad tracks too. So we have to be really careful, because if we're talking about the downtown, that's between the railroad tracks and 3rd Street.
So we'd have to say between the blue line, whatever we want to call the blue
Yes.
line pizza, and then the 3rd Street. Okay, so let me start over. Adopt a resolution to facilitate expansion of outdoor permitted uses onto Campbell Avenue between, and then put in whatever I don't know what you call it, blue line pizza parking lot or the railroad crossing hatch. How do you want to designate the two ends?
Ainsley Park.
Okay,
Exactly.
Ainsley Park, and then what's at the other end?
Well, it's 3rd Street,
But you're
but
coming
we
in
would
shorter.
offset it to allow access to that parking lot.
Yeah, I would still recommend that you designate it as 3rd Street, because that may be a limited closure. So if you call it 3rd Street, then we've got the latitude to do a full or partial closure.
Okay, all right. You're gonna make a resolution or a motion, Liz? Or Ann or somebody? Liz, you gonna make a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion. I'm trying to open it up to get it correctly. We have to make a motion, and I'm asking for clarity. Do we need to revise the resolution, or will the resolution be revised accordingly?
You will need to indicate how to revise the revised resolution. I assume you're working off the revised resolution to begin with, and
That
you
is
will need
correct.
to
I'm trying to
specify that we're talking about allowing all permitted businesses on East Campbell Avenue between
Ainsley Park.
and 3rd.
And then everywhere in the resolution, the language be corrected to match.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm looking for the right document.
Can I read it, Bill, and have her say per whatever I said, or does she
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
read
the
it?
only, yes, I mean, in terms of the right document, you only, you would refer to the revised resolution instead of,
Yeah, but it's got to be revised. The resolution has to be revised more.
yes, it does.
Okay.
You want me to state a
Yeah.
motion that you could adopt?
Get
All
us there
right.
quicker. Get us there quicker, Bill.
Um,
Hey, wait, hang on. Anne's raising her hand. Anne's saying go. Okay, we're going quicker with Bill.
all right. The motion would be to adopt the revised resolution presented as a desk item to facilitate expansion of outdoor business areas onto East Campbell Avenue in support of economic recovery of downtown businesses with replacing every place it says dining and retail with permitted businesses located along East Campbell Avenue between between the Ainsley Park and 3rd Street, and replacing in the first now therefore in the center of page 3, replace located between Civic Center Drive and Orchard City Drive with located on East Campbell Avenue between Ainsley Park and 3rd Street.
I so move.
So let me make sure, Andrea, did you get that?
Most of it. I'll re-listen once
Okay.
I put the resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second by Paul. Vote, please.
Can we have discussion? So there,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, so there, you do not now want staff to work with the DCBA to consider a parklet. We're closing the street down.
That's a good question.
So I made the motion. I didn't think that was necessary, but if staff would prefer that clarity, I would add that to my motion. That's the staff is to work with the DCBA and the chamber to address the parking requirements for all businesses and discuss an alternative parklet solution as discussion dictates.
Okay, and so we have a motion and a second. Does the seconder amend the motion per Liz's comments?
I guess I'm a little worried of switching. If we're switching to parklets, what's this going to mean? This is going to change everything. I don't know. I'm a little.
I think we wanted to leave the discussion open. That the way we carried it, it was to leave the discussion.
I guess I'm willing to have that discussion, or so. It worries me that we're going to delay, but
Okay, let's do this.
Urging staff to move quickly on this. Okay.
Let's move ourselves quickly. Let's not amend the motion at this point because you need to reach out and find out if the parklet ideas are even going to go. And then we may not even close Campbell Avenue after, what, a week of it closed or something. So can we leave the motion as is and have that they.
Staff asked for the clarity. So that's why.
And that's Paul.
Okay, so just so we're all clear, we're gonna go with the complete street closure, period.
No, to start with, you're going to go out and talk to everybody with Ken and the DCBA about closing the street. We're proposing that it will close on Tuesday. But if what you're finding out from everybody is they are not wishing to close, I'm going to have to call an emergency meeting next week to change.
Hence why then Vice Mayor Gibbons put in her clarity.
Well, she didn't get a second on it yet.
Well, let me ask
Todd, hang on, Todd's waving his hand.
I would just suggest that you give us authorization to close the street. It doesn't necessarily carry out as an order to close the street. So if we're
Okay.
authorized to do it, we'll continue.
Thank you.
And if we end up with better information, we're not obligated to close it, but we're authorized.
Thank you.
Okay,
I understand the motion to read as authorizing it, not mandating it.
okay.
Yes, second.
We got a motion and a second. Let's do roll call.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. Wow, you guys,
Wait.
5-0. We got
The-
something done.
Second
It's only
bucket,
10 o'clock.
second, Madam Mayor, second bucket. So do you want us to return to you with the other resolution for uses outside downtown?
I do. Do we need a motion on that?
We would need at least 3 to say yes, come back.
Okay, so does someone make a motion about amending the resolution that was passed before to change the language to add businesses so we can include salons and whoever else opens up
Outside downtown.
I would make,
outside downtown?
I would make a motion that staff return to council to revise the motions to incorporate the businesses now identified as appropriate by the governor.
Second.
Okay, roll call or discussion. Does anybody want to discuss? No, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if to come back to us, it seems like we're trying this experiment for a month. Prior to the month, we're going to talk to people. Now we're saying we're going to do this, but can we just, if necessary, come back to us? I guess I'm not sure I understand. I don't. In other words, talk to people. This may not very well be necessary, depending.
Well, no, this is outside of downtown.
I understand. So maybe.
So I think the city attorney said we needed to do this, but I'm happy.
What do you mean? But we need to find somebody with a problem who says, I want to put my place downtown.
No, Rich, the motion right now is to the resolution that we passed before that talks about the low level of enforcement and who could open would be to change the language to add businesses beyond dining. Right, Liz, is that clear? Yes, she's shaking her head. Bill, we need to make this motion. Paul's saying we need 3 on this one.
Correct. You would
Okay.
need 3 so we could.
So what is
come
this?
back.
I'm still not understanding. What is this new motion?
Let me talk. So Jeanette Woolworth has a fitness studio east of the railroad tracks. Right now, the resolution that you've passed in previous meetings to curtail code enforcement on those businesses that expand out into their parking lots only applies to retail and restaurant. So what you would be motioning is to expand that for those uses outside of downtown.
Permitted uses that are allowable by the
But I still
county.
don't understand. We permitted retail before, right, Paul?
That's correct, but this is for fitness now, fitness and
and
other
salons.
businesses that are
Susan,
not
just a
retail.
second. I'm not. So fitness is not retail. Is that what you're saying right now?
Right.
Do we believe there is a huge force of beyond this one, there's tens and hundreds of people, or is it small?
I have at least 10 or more that have contacted me that.
I know you do. I'm not surprised.
Well, Liz has too. Everybody has.
That means there's got to be 85 people out there, I'm sure. Okay. I'd be a little surprised, but that's okay.
Yeah, a lot of the use permits that we've granted for these businesses require them to occupy, to conduct the activity inside a building. So this will allow them to conduct it outside without having to amend every use permit. So this is the curtailing code enforcement.
All right, let's have a meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's do roll call.
Councilmember Waterman,
No.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Yay.
Thank
we got
you.
stuff
Thank you.
done. Okay, good job, you guys. Thank you, staff. I know Michael and Todd and Paul and all their guys are on this and doing a lot of work. I have a question. I do need to take a break for 5 minutes. Brian, Todd, do we have to discuss the vehicle miles traveled today, or can we do that later?
Well, we were supposed to have according to the state, we should have had a policy in place by July 1st. So we are late on that date. And if we defer it at this point, you won't see the item for another 4 weeks.
Okay, so can we do it with the minimal amount of presentation or
You can do
nothing?
it with next to no I mean, I can introduce our consultant once again, and he can give you a 2 or 3 minute run through of how, because it's effectively taking the comments that you heard before, the comments you made before, and we crafted them into a policy based on your comments and guidance from the state OPR. But if you want to take the break first, we can do that after, but we can make it on the short side for sure.
Right, you see my little.
There's
Okay.
no PowerPoint presentation, so.
Okay, so let's take a break, and then Todd, we're gonna come back with the VMT. And how about if we just start with asking questions, and then if you need to present, we can do it that way.
Sounds fair enough.
Okay, so back at 10:05, 4-minute break. Is that enough time? Okay. Damn, what's in my mind? Sorry, guys, I have something in my eye. All right, do we got everybody back? We're missing Rich. Are you there, Rich? Yep, there we go. City Clerk, you're there?
I am.
Okay, so we're on number 17. So what we're gonna do is if council members have questions, then we could have a presentation. Otherwise, in the light of how time has passed, then we can go from there. So does anybody have questions on vehicle miles traveled? Hi there, we got Gary and Todd here and Harry, or Matthew, I'm sorry, not Harry. Liz?
So I just wanted to revisit, if you will, clarify that we're doing two things tonight. We're complying with the state regulations and the transitions to the vehicle miles traveled or whatever it is. Then we're also revising or making level of service our own analysis. Am I saying that correctly?
I lost you a little bit at the end there, but if you were going where I think you were, you're right. We have composed a draft vehicle miles traveled policy, and then we're also confirming that we will continue to keep an LOS we will retain the LOS analysis for our own impacts that may be used as conditions of approval, but confirming for council that those cannot be used in the environmental review of a project.
Right, and they can also be used to establish the fees associated with any required transportation work.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Rich, do you have any questions? Paul? Ann? No? Liz, any more questions? That was going to be my question too. So we're keeping LOS for our own purposes, not for the EIRs or environmental review. Correct. Okay, do we have any do we have any public people that want to speak?
We do not.
Okay, close the public hearing. Does there want to be a conversation or a motion?
There does not have to be a motion because this is the draft policy. So we were really looking at council input. As I said before the break, this is a draft policy that was put together by input that we received from council at the meeting in June, and we are in compliance and largely following the OPR guidance. I will also point out that as a result of the last meeting we had with council did ask a variety of questions, and the responses for those questions were also attached to this report as well. So not only do you have the staff report, but you also have the questions that were asked and the responses, and then the draft policy. And I will also say that since the packet came out, we did get a question from a council member, perhaps requesting a little more specificity on what a public facility project is. So we'll take that comment under advisement as we craft this draft policy. And our next step would be to bring it back to council, hopefully in about 4 weeks for adoption with council at the August, I want to say 18th meeting. And that would hopefully get us an adopted VMT policy at that point. So unless there are any other questions or other concerns from council, we will move forward with that direction.
Okay, so we don't need a motion? All right. Well, sorry, Matthew and Gary, to make you stay on the call so long, but you're off the hook now. Thank you all, and I appreciate the summary of our comments. I thought that was wonderful. It answered my questions. So thank you for your work, and look forward to the final on this.
Good.
Great. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you all. So now we're on item 18, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $20 million, increasing the revenue estimate in Fund 448 Measure O capital projects to account for anticipated Measure O bond proceeds in fiscal year 2021 and authorizing actions related thereto. So I see Will could be our presenter, but can we do the same thing and ask questions before?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, you got to recuse yourself.
Because, yeah, just to explain, because I recuse on the police issues and these agenda items relate to both projects, the city attorney's in agreement that I should recuse. So I'm going to recuse and just to say for the record, I don't think you're going to get to council reports, but my board meetings were canceled in July, so no reports. So I'm gonna disconnect from the Zoom meeting.
Okay, just before you leave, Paul, the reason you still have to recuse yourself is because we don't have a site plan yet and we don't know where the building for police is going to go, because I think you were in the 500 feet were in the corner.
The
Right,
500
that's
feet relates to the 500 feet relates to the parcel that the city hall, the non-library parcel, city hall and police. If we're on that parcel, it's a problem. If we decide to be off that parcel, then the issue's.
Okay. All right. So thank you for joining
Thank
us
you,
tonight, and go walk your dog a little. And
she's asking right now. Thank you.
okay.
Bye,
Okay.
Paul.
So, Brian, are we okay without making a presentation, or Rich and Liz? Do we, and just have a discussion and questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor, these would be allowed to be a calendar item, so no presentations necessary, but staff.
Okay.
We also have finance staff from municipal advisors, bond counsel, Katie Dobson, and our underwriting Eileen Gallagher's with us too, if there's questions.
Thank you. Hi, Will, Eileen, Greg, and Katie.
Yes.
Thank you all for holding out there for a while. Okay, so let's start with Rich. Do you have any questions or comments? Anne?
No, I don't.
Liz?
Yes, I've given my questions to the city manager. He knows what my issues and concerns are.
So are you ready to make a motion? Somebody?
Make a motion that the city council adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $20 million, increasing the revenue estimate in Fund 448 Measure O capital projects to account for the anticipated Measure O bond proceeds in fiscal year 2021 and authorizing the actions thereto.
Related thereto.
Related.
Sorry.
I'll
Do we have
second.
a second? Anne seconded that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. All right, great. That was quick. Thank you, everybody. Sorry you all had to hang in there so long, but it's 10 o'clock, so you guys can, if you want, stay on, but we'll move to 19. So this one is a resolution authorizing an ad valorem tax levy based on the debt service estimate to be provided to Santa Clara County respecting unsold general obligation bonds for fiscal year 2021 and increasing the revenue estimate in Fund 348 Measure O bond to account for anticipated Measure O property tax levy revenue in fiscal year 2021. And again, unless someone has questions, we'll skip a presentation. Rich, questions? Anne, questions?
No questions.
Liz, questions?
No questions.
Any discussion? Do we have any public speakers on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Anybody ready to make a motion? Anne?
I'll make a motion unless Ann.
Liz?
I'll make a motion that the city council adopt a resolution authorizing an ad valorem tax levy based on a debt service estimated to be provided to Santa Clara County respecting unsold general obligation bonds for fiscal year 2021 and increasing the revenue estimate for Fund 348 Measure O bond to account for anticipated Measure O property tax levy revenue in fiscal year 2021.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Could we have discussion for a minute, please?
Oh, yep. Discussion, Ann.
I just wanted to clarify, I believe we had a desk item on this item.
Yes, yes, it does say we have to include the desk item in the motion.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm pretty sure it was this item, right?
Yeah, it's the one, is this the one that revised the dollar amount?
That is correct.
So with the corrected dollar or the revised dollar amount. Thank you.
The seconder agrees with that. Rich, say yes. Yes, okay. Roll call.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons,
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. Wow, you guys, that was great. 10 minutes. Wonderful. Thank you again, everybody, for all the stuff you've been doing. We're moving forward with Measure O. Yee-hee, right? Okay, so the last item on the agenda are committee council reports. Rich, do you have any? Ann?
No reports.
Liz?
I would just say that the Silicon Valley Clean Energy has initiated its eHub, which is a resource to inspire, educate, and enable customers to power their cars and home appliances with clean electricity. It provides homeowner installation of solar storage information. This includes 3 vendor tools to support customers to take action. All kinds of great tools now available for free access and really a great opportunity. It's on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy website. Silicon Valley Clean Energy was named a finalist for the Smart Electrical Power Alliance Power Players Award related to the Reach Codes initiatives. That's a national award. It's a big award. And finally, on Silicon Valley Clean Energy received Moody's investment grade credit rating of a Baa2, which only the PCA to obtain that kind of financial solvency recognition. At ABAG, as I said earlier, we have lots of meetings. I'm gonna find my notes. ABAG voted in support of AB 2040, SB 902, and SB 995. The Housing Committee started, and it will have a strong focus on homelessness. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Today was a call to the Valley Water. They were expanding the timeline for the safe and clean water funding that they get. The amount is not changing. They're just extending the years out to pay for the dam renovation projects. They're having to drain Anderson and rebuild the levee. That was today. I supported that. Every Saturday, Cindy Chavez has a all mayors telephone call, and we've been focusing on testing, but now the shift has changed to the mental health mobile unit. That's where I got the statistics from. And now we're also this weekend, we're gonna talk about contact tracing and any other topics that come up with the mayors. So I think that's it. We're all good. We did this pretty good. I'm happy we all had 5 votes on almost everything. Liz?
I just wanted to offer that there is a survey that's being pushed significantly by MTC ABAG to get community input on the 2050 plan. And that is available on Facebook. They're publishing it every day, and it's also available on the website. And if community members want to have a say in the future, of our community, that would be a great place to start.
Okay, and I'll just give a heads up to the other, I know Paul's gone, but I have a feeling we're going to have to call a council meeting before the 18th to deal with downtown. So heads up, just in case, we may have to have a meeting in a week or two. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to staff. And we will see you guys later.
Night.